Hey, this is Cap, and you're watching Thorin, the only man besides Richard Lewis who somehow found a way to get both League of Legends and Dota Redditors to hate him.
You said before the story of how OG asked you to be their coach, and at first you were thinking like you weren't going to do it, and then you came into the team. Now, as you said, one of the very good ways to frame it actually is that kind of you have no excuses if you become the coach of OG, because they had already won a major. So it's not like, you know, they haven't figured anything out and you're just going to take them to the top from nothing. They've already got a team that's proven it can win. But you did also get them after they'd also just done badly at a major. So if anything, you got them at the dream time to be a coach, right? Because they're going to be open to listening, but they've got the talent. It's like, there's a scenario I often describe when I'm talking about Counter-Strike with this, when someone becomes the new in-game leader of a team, where to me, that type of a squad is like, if you were an amazing driver and someone just gave you one of the best cars, it's like, okay, it hasn't won yet because you have to help drive the car, but you know it can win. And so that's a different mentality from when it's one like, I have to build the car and I have to say, and who knows if it ever will, but you know, it's a different mentality. So it must have been very different from those past teams, right?
Yeah, that's the reason why it convinced me to like change direction completely. I was slowly like going away from Dota, and I just like dove back in like 200%. And only for what you just mentioned, it's like it was very clear that this was the best opportunity I've gotten to that day to prove myself, like once and for all. There was not going to be any doubts. I either fail, like personally, like I'm in control, and it's also the tricky part with Dota because like it's a team game. So it's always, you always have to put that cursor, like what was it? 50% me, 15% like whatever is around me. Was it mainly me? Was it mainly whatever's like? It's just hard. But that scenario is like potential is there. There's no doubt about it. Right now they're in a rough spot, so it's mostly like team things, right? Like strategy, whatever a coach can bring. So can I help them build this back up, and then I have the confirmation that my ideas are good enough, or maybe I can't do much for them, and then it means that, you know, I'm not on that level of Dota. So that was the perfect scenario. So I just went for it.
So obviously, when you joined this team, pretty good start. You won a major, pretty much right out the door. So what was that like? How did that come about?
It was a dream come true. Like everything just like, you know, the stars, they aligned. Like all these experiences that I've had in the past, they made sense. They started being useful. The level of Dota that they were playing, it was very high. So there was nothing, how to put it, nothing that would stop me from applying the concepts and the view that I had on the game. Nothing mechanical. I mean, nothing structural that would like just stop me. You know, like we need to stop right now and work on something very basic because we can't get to the next level. No, there was no such thing. Like everything could just be applied like right away in the game, because these guys were that good at Dota that it was just very simple. So whatever we worked on with like theory would transition into like concrete things like right away if it was theorized properly and explained properly and set up properly, which was mainly the captain's role, like Tal's role, like the fly's role at that point, like to just like help that transition happen in the game, because obviously the coach is not there during the game, so it has to, like this theory thing happens before it gets like it gets better with practice, and then you want it to transition in the game, and that's mainly his role. It's exclusively his role actually at that point, because the coach isn't even in the draft, but it just kept happening, and obviously the practice was going really well, because the ideas I was bringing in with theirs also, like we just like matched everything and got the best out of everything. When I joined at first, I had thought about how I wanted to do it. I had like a week or two to think about how I wanted to do it, because I think they offered me to join for a tournament that happened before the major, and I denied because I wanted more time to think about. I knew this was going to be like this one last ride for me. So I didn't want to be too hasty about it. I wanted to think about how I wanted it to happen, to make sure that like there was nothing else I could blame than myself if it didn't work. Like that was really important for me, because it's the only way out I was gonna get. Like if I had any other doubt, like if I had just a little doubt that, oh, it could have went better if this and that, then I would have kept going through the pain and stuff. I didn't want to. So I took time, and I ended up realizing what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go there and like just listen at first, like just understand what kind of players they are, what kind of team they are, what makes them what's the potential, what makes them potentially a great team, which I thought they were. And then I'm going to take it from there. Instead of coming in with my ideas and forcing them to adapt, I'm going to adapt to them, and I'm going to like empower whatever they have going. And it's what I ended up doing, and ended up adding my ideas when it was needed, when it was good enough. It wasn't about me. It was about getting that team to win. That's the only purpose. So whatever's ready to win, it's ready to win. And when it's not, if I need to like just change it a little bit or tweak it a little bit, I do. If I need to like start over, I'll start over with them. And that was my approach pretty much. And it was great. I mean, that team was probably like, the level of that team was like through the roof. Like practice went amazingly well. Everything we had going was great, and we dominated the major. We were like for sure the best team at the major. There was no doubt. There are a lot of tournaments where I don't think the best team wins. That tournament specifically, the best team won. That's at least what I think. I think all the other teams were like really behind us in terms of plays and game understanding.
So you had this Manila major you won, then you similarly dominant at ESL Frankfurt, and it basically wasn't until you got to the summit and you ran into this team called Wings, who a month later did win TI, so they were pretty good. Right, what would you say, since you didn't get to play them at the International, where everyone saw how ridiculous it was and the way they were winning with like seemingly picking just any hero they wanted, just ignored the meta completely. What were the troubles when you faced them at this summit tournament? Like
Wings was my nightmare as a coach. It's still my nightmare up today, because a really big part of what we were doing with that OG squad was preparation. The way we were preparing for teams was really good, and obviously I was playing a big part in that regard. It was mainly my job to help us prepare, and the way we had that transition between applying that preparation in the game through like Fly first as a captain and through the players, it was flawless. Like the preparation was good, the transition was amazing, and what happened in the game was even better. And then it left the other team, and that's excluding the fact that the players could just like straight up outplay and straight up like outsmart in the game also, like in the moment. So all that put together meant like usually the teams we would face, they had no chance. But Wings was different because it was impossible to prepare for them. It was actually impossible. There was nothing you could, because preparation can hurt. Like if you start planning too much, and what happens is actually very far from what you planned. Now you're stuck with things in your head, and instead of having a very fresh look on things, you're stuck with things that are not going to be useful. And it's kind of a human tendency where like if you work really hard, you want to apply it. Like even if when the situation arises, like the situation presents itself where you kind of know that you're not going to be applying it because something else came up, you still feel like applying it. You're like I didn't spend a week preparing, and I don't feel like not using anything. You kind of force it, and it does more bad than good, to be honest, if you're going to be stuck in that mindset. So with Wings, you just couldn't prepare. I really tried. I spent so much time studying them and trying to understand and I think they just didn't want team to be prepared. And maybe it was
right. So it wasn't like, for example, one thing I always wondered when I saw that TI is like, oh, have they just been like secretly doing some of this stuff and they just didn't ever show it in a match? Like there really was just nothing there was no hints at some of this stuff they were going to do.
No, at least I didn't find it. I didn't crack it. And I'd like to think I cracked all the teams I've faced in Dota except for Wings. Wings is like, I didn't. And if someone did, I would be willing to pay a lot of money or whatever they want to have the solution, because I'm still thinking about it. Up to this day, I still go to Wings replays and drafts, and I try to understand what I couldn't understand in time back then, because it really bothers me. This is the one thing that bothers me the most in Dota right now. I still don't get it. Like I understand what they end up having and stuff. Like it makes sense in game, but the way they get to it, that's what I don't understand. It's crazy.
Did that actually influence your philosophy in OG? Because, from the outside, some people think that, like, for example, in this run here, since you knew you didn't have like the best team and the best players and the best form, you had to do some kind of unorthodox, off the wall things that you had to at times ignore the meta. Because, I mean, as an outsider, it seemed like the philosophy was like, well, if we can't play all these meta champs, what's the point in picking them? Why not just pick something that you can play? And then here's some sort of logic as to why you at least had a rationale at all times, right? Going into every draft, presumably.
I mean, it did influence us. I think it influenced everybody, us included. It's like they taught us a couple lessons to how to approach the game that we applied. I wouldn't say that we didn't try to mimic what they were doing, because obviously you can't really mimic something you don't understand, sure. First of all. And secondly, mimicking what they were doing is just, I don't believe in that approach so much, because it probably doesn't fit what you want to do. Like, what matters is what you want to do. Like, you're not going to win as Wings. You're going to win as OG or whoever you are. And I mean, Wings is going to win as Wings, just take the pages from their books that you think could fit you, and the rest just leave it there. It doesn't matter. They definitely influenced us a lot. I think mainly me and Johan were very, very inspired by that team, and we kept talking about what we believed they were doing, because obviously we'll never know.
Sure. Does not want to speak Chinese.
Yeah, especially. I was gonna say, like, if they were another team, like, we maybe could have walked to them at some point. Maybe now today, like, we want TI, maybe they want to hear from us now. Sure. So maybe we could be like, yo, dude, like, let's just talk. Like, what were you doing back then? And that would be my dream. That would be the biggest win ever. But we just like try to theory craft on what we thought they were doing and learn from it when we thought it was good.
So with this great form and these championships, you went to the international. Most people had your team as, if not the favourite, one of the heavy favourite. Like, it's one of those scenarios where I noticed this doesn't actually work for internationals. The tournament is so different and is such a strong format that, like, there's no such thing as a team. Even if they won every tournament, that's like, oh, they're definitely going to get at least top 3. Like, it always feels like that, but it just doesn't work. Like, if you go and look at the number 1 ranked team every time, oftentimes they don't even make top 5. It's really crazy. So coming into this one, things did look like that was going to happen, though, because in the group stage, it was going flawless pretty much. You beating everyone. No one beat you in a series. Came out first place. And the way you lost has to be one of the most shocking TI runs ever, because you just instantly lost. You lost to MVP Phoenix, the Korean team, where, if everyone remembers, yes, this was certainly a tournament that they went deep in. It was one of their big results. They'd had some results earlier in the year that had been impressive, but still nothing to expect this. And then the other team was obviously the guys from Philippines, TCN, where, again, this was another great run for them, one of their best runs. So even if you want to give them credit and be like, great game, guys, like, tournament of your lives, this has to be the biggest gut punch ever, right? You even did so great in the group stage. So how do you explain this international?
I mean, there was definitely the favorites pressure, where, like, everybody expected us to win these games. Like, so you go in these games, and if you win, it was expected. If you lose, obviously, it's like a huge, like, it's the disaster. It's a catastrophe. And if you don't win convincingly, people are gonna say that. Or, like, not even people, like, you're going to feel like, oh, we're maybe not in our best form. So MVP Phoenix, we had played them in the Manila Major like a couple of months earlier, and we, like, destroyed them completely in that tournament. There was even a 28-0 map or something. It was like complete domination. So after the Manila Major, it was very clear that we were, like, a much better team than they were. So we picked that team, actually, instead of, I don't remember who was the other pick. I think it might have been LGD. So it was, we picked MVP Phoenix to play against, and I think that was the first mistake, to be honest. I think we should not have picked that team. This picking team is really tricky. I personally don't like it, because, I mean, what is the message that you send? It's like, you pick the weaker team. So are you looking for an easy way to get to the finals? Like, do you need an easy way? Are you not confident? On the other side, you pick the stronger team. So what is it? Are you cocky?
Yes.
Are you, like, it's just hard. Like, no matter what, to me, what I would want to do is just, like, toss a coin, and whatever you get, you just deal with it. That's what I would want to do. So we picked MVP Phoenix, and we're in a situation. So what? Are we gonna 28-0 them again, or are we not? So are we weaker? Are they gonna beat us? So what is happening? It looked like a lose-lose. Like, no matter what, it was a lose-lose. And we did ended up losing. So we did end up losing to them, and now we're in a spot where it's like everybody expects you to win the whole thing. Now you're losing to a team that 2 months ago you used to completely dominate on every aspect of the game, like in the game, like mechanically, strategically, and now you just lost to them. So you're left in a pretty bad spot mentally. Then happens the TNC game where there's like even more pressure, and we're also like huge favorites. I think we had a very, I mean, it's not that I think, I know the way we were dealing with this favorite position was far from optimal, if not super game losing. And it's definitely what lost us this TI. It's the way we approached the favorite position. It was very bad.
Because obviously one thing, I mean, you'd never been in this position before, is that you, if not winning everything, like, okay, you lost to Wings, but as we said, they were like they proved to be the best team. They were amazing. Your team was so dominant that you hadn't actually faced any of that adversity you were talking about earlier. This squad of OG, with you as the coach, hadn't gone through a tough loss that teaches you some key lesson, or, you know, how to come back and you were dominating everyone, right?
No, yeah, exactly. We had not, and or like not a loss that was that major. I mean, maybe it was the summit thing, but that was whatever. It's the summit. It's just a chill tournament. They don't even want to show that much before TI, so it's like it was not even a loss to us. It was like whatever. It was a fun tournament, but no, we didn't. So when we started facing it, this is when things got ugly pretty quickly. And I mean, it's not that we were not willing to try whatever it took to get over it. We really tried. I remember we really tried, but we had to go through these losses to actually understand what happened and understand what we need to do in that situation. Today I know, but back then I didn't, and I had to go through these losses, I guess. And sometimes you can get lucky. Like sometimes you were supposed to lose and you win, and then you can reflect, even though you moved on in the tournament, and be like, sure, we approached it wrong. And this happens. This is why, I mean, there is luck, or like you know what I mean. Like, but most of the time, like 90% of cases, you're gonna end up losing. You don't win when you're supposed to lose, and you just lose when you're supposed to lose, and then you learn and you get stronger.
So since this lineup afterwards did one of those traditional TI break the lineup up and people try their chance at it, let me ask you about a couple of the players that were in this lineup before we move on to the next one. So one of the things about this squad is like, yes, No-Tail and Fly were very well-known players from their time in Fnatic, from when No-Tail joined up with Cloud9, obviously a very popular team. But they were players that had never won on the level they won in OG. Like, you know, they'd won some smaller tournaments or been in finals when they were in Fnatic, and obviously Cloud9 very rarely ever won anything to Cloud9. But when they got to OG and they're becoming championship setter, what did you think of them as players before you joined the team, and how would you describe them in this squad? Because this is obviously the period when No-Tail was actually playing mid.
No-Tail and Fly specifically, right?
Yes.
I mean, as players, I thought they were really like nice guys and stuff. I used to hang out with them a little bit, and I thought they were very chill and humble and nice and very good players also. When I joined OG, I didn't really have too many thoughts on them before. It's like I usually don't assume too much before I actually meet people. But when I met them, like when I joined OG, I thought, I mean, they were really, really mature as players. Like the way they were looking at the game, and mostly like everything outside of the game, like how to communication, like the team, how to create like a good environment for people. It was very eye-opening for me, especially No-Tail. Fly was a very good captain. He had a way to manage ideas, and like he was a very good like managing captain, I would say. Like the way he would use resources around him was very good. It was honestly close to being optimal. I was looking at him. I mean, I've been a captain myself, so looking at other captains is very like it's a very good experience, because it's kind of a way to look at yourself also. It's like, could I do this like as well as he's doing it right now? Or maybe yes, maybe no. With Fly, mostly when I looked at the way he used resources around him, as in like players' ideas, in game and outside of the game, I don't think I could have done a better job. Like he was doing it flawlessly. And when it came to Johan, it was mostly, that guy's just very smart. Like he just understands things people don't understand. Like he's just ahead of a lot of people when it comes to Dota things and outside of the game things, I've learned so much alongside that guy. And as I said earlier in this discussion, it's like, to me, learning is the most valuable thing in Dota. So being around him becomes the most valuable thing in Dota. And it's with him specifically, it's much more than Dota. It's like we connected on a human level. Like I consider him my close friend, whether Dota is a part of it or not. Like I am very convinced he will still be my close friend, and I'm gonna be hanging out with him 20 years from now or whatever. Like, this is like it's someone I met in life, and it I don't want to say it changed my life. It sounds maybe cheesy, but it did in a way. Like this is someone I met that changed the way I looked at a lot of things, and I'd like to think it's what's the word for it? Like it goes like vice versa.
Sure. Yes, same for both people, right? What about this then? So when we alluded earlier to when people had this philosophy of like, right, you can just get all these amazing players out of just MMR gods and, we'll teach them Dota as we go. Obviously, one of the names that springs to mind for that is Miracle, because he basically was one of the first people, him, and then Eternal Envy got Weeha for the secret team. And these were the two names that were kind of proof that this concept could work. And I've even seen at times people in OG when he was in the squad make it almost sound like at times it was like, if everything goes wrong, just make sure Miracle gets farmed and we might be able to win this game. So that, and what was actually like, because obviously this is when he was like a fresh player to the competitive scene. Now people know him as the champion of TI, using Team Liquid, all the rest of it. So that's the finished product in some ways. What was the early Miracle like, and how did you try to use him in the team?
I mean, that guy was just like insanely good at the game, to the point where it made me question. So the way I look at things usually is like, I don't like to set limits to people, or like to myself included, like what you can do. I think with enough work and practice and will, you can get wherever you want to get. That guy had me question this when it came to Dota. Like I was just watching him play, and I'm like this is, I don't think people can just get there. Like I think that guy's just on another level. I actually got that feeling. I think I thought a lot about it, because obviously this changes like the way you look at things. So it's much more than the game. So to me, it's worth thinking about it. And to Dota specifically, I think it's his ability to focus. I think it comes from this. Like he has an ability to focus on the game that is much higher than most other players. And I would say that's one of his biggest strengths. He's just in the zone almost all the time. It's how I feel. Where like it's hard to give your, like, always give your 200% on a game. Like it's pretty tricky. I guess it's something you can practice to increase it, but for that guy, I think it's something he has in him. Because I don't think actually he was not doing anything special to get there. It was just there. So call it
just a natural or something.
Yeah, it was just natural. It was just there. And actually, like back then his lifestyle was not, if anything, we thought he could do much more to help himself, but obviously he did not need the help, because the result was much better than everybody else, even though they were trying to set themselves up for success and for like achieving that level of focus and whatnot. So that was the main thing about Miracle. And I mean, when you have someone like that in the game, you have to play around it, because he just wins you games you're not supposed to win. And it would be stupid to ignore it. People say it about a lot of players, and often I don't feel like it's justified. Often it's more a mixture of how the team helps it, and like people shine because the team allows them to shine most of the time, and that's like almost exclusively. For Miracle, there was a lot of this. I think the way Johan built the team dynamic around him was extremely smart and extremely case efficient. Like it was specifically for that guy, it was perfect, and it helped that guy definitely like unleash the potential that he had, and damn it, like that potential was like unlimited. So it ended up being two consequences. It ended up being exponential, and it ended up being what it ended up being. But like Miracle had been on teams before OG, and nobody noticed him almost. Yeah. Like he was playing a team called Back and Bears. I remember watching. I was like, that guy's pretty good. Like, but that was it. and he went from being pretty good to being like the absolute uncontested best player in the history of Dota. And that's like, that doesn't just happen, you know, like he didn't wake up a morning and then he became a superhero. No, he met someone, or he met a team that helped him become that player. And that's what happened in OG. And all the teams picked it up. They're like, oh, the way OG plays around Miracle makes them like that good of a team. We need to play around somebody. And all the teams started doing this. Like, okay, EG is like, oh, we got to play around Sumail. Newbie is like, we got to play around SCCC. Liquid, when they got Miracles, like, we're going to take Miracle and play around Miracle. Like, everybody just copied it to the point where it was, to me, like, my read on it is that it was mainly a no-tail thing. Like, he understood I'm talking before I arrived, and I took a page out of his book because the way he approached it, it was genius. And that's something, for example, I've never thought about in Dota, and I learned that from him. Yeah, that's pretty much what it was.
Well, it's like, I think this might also have been like a no-till quote. I'm paraphrasing and remember him. By the way, for anyone who hasn't ever seen a no-till interview, there's like an element of, because he's Danish, it's not like overt, but there's an element of like sarcastic humor in a lot of his statements. He doesn't really think he should play full fucked up, as I said before, you know, like that's like a way of describing it. So don't take it all at surface value. But he also, along these lines, when he's talking about Miracle, said something along the lines of like, if a game's going to shit, that's exactly why you just load up everything into Miracle. Because it's like, since his like daily life is just smash everyone in stupid MMR games where no one knows what the fuck they're doing. It's like, that's his office. You just set him up for that. You go, right, go to work.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, it just kept happening in the games anyway. So that was the beauty of it.
When these players left, so there was Miracle left, Moon Meander obviously went to Digital Chaos. The other player we didn't talk about, Crit, right? Actually, let's do that first. Let's just talk about Crit, because obviously in the story later on he will arise again. So this is a player where I noticed this was a trend with Danish players, where if you're Danish, you tend to be good at Dota, you'll play forever, literally like 10 years or whatever, but a lot of them have tortured careers, like they never quite get the championship, or they're in a good team, but not at the right time. And this is someone where there's been many years where people admired him and thought he was one of the best 4-position players and great captain, etc. But he always was like just on the wrong side of winning like a TI or being like the ultimate champion, you know. So what was it like to work with him? Because obviously now, again, he's trying to do it in EG. He's trying to work with a lot of talent there to win. It hasn't quite yet worked out.
Crit is, I think, one of the best players I've worked with. I mean, I still have a lot of players, but for him, it's like, I don't know, I can't find many flaws. Like, when it comes to in-game communication, outside of the game, obviously that guy has like, he kind of puts a little bit of distance. Like, he's a very professional guy. Okay. And I think he's a very mature person. Like, he knows what he's here for. He probably knows his weakness and his strength very well, and he works around it perfectly. I mean, people, like, there's not a set way to behave, you know, like, as long as there's respect, there is like professionalism, like there's trust, like, you know, that's good enough. Like, sometimes you want to be best friends, sometimes you don't want to, and that's totally fine. Like, everybody's free to do whatever he wants and live the life he wants to live. So that's definitely, if anything, I would say, like, if I can find anything, it's like, yeah, there could have been a little bit less distance, but that was definitely up to him and others. Like, it was totally fine, and it never transitioned in games. Like, he was handling it perfectly. That guy, it was perfect, honestly. Like, it was actually perfect in game communication, outside of the game. Amazing player, amazing potential. I think he's one of the players, if I had to pick three, he'd be the 3 players that I think should have won a TI by now, and didn't win it. He's definitely in the list, like, for sure.
Was it a shock then when he left? Because the difference is, right, Miracle was still young. Obviously, you know, young players who are very talented. One of the problems with being very talented is oftentimes you don't know when it's like, this is my chance to win here. So you think I can win anywhere. So I understand why those players go different places. I actually understand Arteezy, as I alluded to earlier. You know, it's just the world they live in. Likewise, Moon Meander, okay, he's friends with some of the players in DC. I can see why that would be an appealing move. But the Crit one is the one that always confused me, because to me, it's like people like Fly, No-Tail, Crit, these seem like players who are kind of like kindred spirits. You know, they have a similar vision of how you're going to win in the game. So was this move a shock for you? Did you know it was coming?
No, I did not see it coming. That team, of OG played at such a high level that I didn't expect anybody to make a move, to be honest. And I thought it was a mistake from all of them. Like whoever made a move, it was a mistake. That's what I thought. I mean, I don't mean it in a way where obviously it was not a mistake, because if they decided it, it means they had reasons to do it, and I don't question their reasons. But from my perspective, from the Dota perspective, there was no reason to change anything. That's what I mean when I say it was a mistake. Like from the Dota perspective, this team should have won TI and was gonna win the next one, like no doubts. And it was a big shock when he left. The way he left was totally fine, though. I mean, he did it. To me, there's the reason why you leave and there's the way you leave. Like these are different things. The reason why he left was kind of a shock to me, because I think he just really wanted to play with certain players, like other players,
Right.
and he looked at that more than what he was leaving behind, which is fine. Like obviously it's his decision, so by definition it's the right one. I was kind of shocked. The way he did it was very, very, how to say, correct. Correct in a way. I mean. I can't find the word, but like proper.
Very,
he did it.
Yeah, professional. Tell everyone the right way. Explain.
He had a very
don't
open
just say
talk.
it. By the way, I've gone and see it.
Yeah, but it's like he had a very open talk with us. He explained us why he thought it was better for him to leave the team, and I mean that was it. And obviously we told him that, you know, it was we were a little bit disappointed that we were not gonna keep going with him, but you know, wish him good luck further, and yeah, best of luck in the future. And you know, whatever that has been built in that team will always remain. Like and yeah, he just moved on. As for the other players, Moon Meander was gonna get removed from the team because of things were not clicking when it came to like on a human level with certain persons on the team. Include like I'm excluding myself because it was a player thing where like in the game the way they were dealing with emotions and stuff, Moon Meander, it was a little bit different. So this ended up being like persistent issue throughout the season. It was the only issue the team had, and it was not to blame one or blame someone else. Like, you know, it's not to try to shift blame to like, it's just it wasn't clicking. So if one change had to be made, it was going to be this one. So the decision came pretty quickly after TI that removing Moon would be better for everybody. Obviously, not as good for him, but the team was going through certain issues. Yeah. So yeah, that was it. It was a rough decision still, because the Dota part was still going really well, but
yes,
yeah.
Well, as you alluded to earlier, like if you're the coach, your philosophy is like, okay, yeah, this is obviously a crushing result, but like this is one tournament, you know, we win all the others, we win the majors. Like you say, if you're going to make this one roster move anyway, like, you know, let's keep this core together. Like, because the problem here is, right, if someone hears you say it's a mistake for Miracle to leave, they're going to go, what do you mean he won the next TI? It's like, yeah, but maybe he could have won TI, maybe he would have won even more, and no one could know this was a chance to do more. Was it already then, though, known? Like, for example, would it always have been S4 who came in for Moon Meander?
No, I think at that point, actually, what happened actually is that, so the decision to remove Moon, that was like settled. It was clear to everybody, right? Because something had to change, and we did not even have a backup plan. It's not like there was an opportunity, so we wanted to change something. Something just had to change. So then we had to figure out, like, how can we make the most out of the situation now, right? And at the same time, like, everybody had confirmed that they wanted to stick together, and at the same time, and before it got to Crit to say his part, so Miracle at first wanted to stay because he wanted that team to keep going. Everybody else did, but then the Moon release happened, and Crit also announced that he actually decided to go. It took him some time after TI, but then he made the move. I think he hesitated a lot, but then he ended up doing it. And when that happened, this is when Miracle was like, I wanted to keep going with the same roster. Like, I was in for to you know, like, extend what that team has started, like, had built. But since this is a completely different team, it's gonna be a completely different team. You have 2 players changing out of 5. Like, that's a huge change, and it's gonna be a different team no matter how you look at it, even if it was only one change. In that case, I want to challenge myself more, and you know, he felt like he got lazy a little bit, in OG because he was like so praised by everybody, and it was too comfortable, and he was disappointed with his TI6 performance, and he wanted to push himself even more. And for him, the best way to do it was to like start a new team. Like he's like, since we're gonna be starting something new anyway, I might as well start from scratch because I know it's gonna be super challenging for me, and this is the way I'm gonna be like the best player I can ever be. And you can only respect that approach.
Sure.
Obviously, it was a huge like blow that Miracle leaves, same as Andreas, Crit, that is. But I mean, it happened. To me, the hardest part of that season was not the TI6 losses. Seeing that team that I thought was like one of the best team that ever played Dota, like the Manila Major period and stuff. Like to me, that was like some TI3 Alliance shit. Like it was really high level, and then everything just disappeared. Like a couple of months after that, that was really rough to swallow because it belongs to the past now. You know, it's never gonna happen again. So that was the really rough part. And I remember that at that point, like Fly was really down specifically because he was like, and we're left with two-man roster pretty much. Couple of months after we win the Manila Major, and he also thought that I was gonna leave because he expected me to. I mean, I've always been really close to Miracle, so maybe he expected me to follow him in Liquid or something. So he's like, we're probably. And then this is when I told them like, what happened? I don't think it's not right. Not in the sense that people were bad to us, but you know, like on the Dota side of things, it's not right. Like that team deserved to go much further. Yes. You as a captain, Johan as a player, like we deserve to go further. Like and. So of course this is like a hard time, and this is when you can I'll be there, you know, like this. I'm not gonna jump off the boat when it gets hard. This is when I'm gonna confirm that I'll be there through anything. So pretty quickly I confirmed, like pretty much the day I learned that Miracle was gonna leave, I told them like no matter what I'll be there, and we're gonna rebuild that team, and yeah, we're gonna get back up like pretty quickly. Like you know, I do believe that life ends up making things right. So that doesn't sound right. It means we're not at the end of the journey, you know, we're in the middle of it. So just like stay strong.
Because when you came to rebuild, as you said there, a key aspect here is because people who know the story of the team know you go on to win after this. It's always easy, I've noticed, if you're a casual fan and you look at like Liquipedia to go like, oh, they won here, so they must have known that team was awesome and, you know, they got the right players. It's like, that you're thinking backwards there. At the time, the key detail to understand about these big roster moves that always happened after every international is, I always describe it as it's kind of like the game musical chairs, where the whole thing is, because everyone rushes, like, I want this star player and I'm going to join this team. It's like, if you get left behind, you've got the choice of like nothing. You're like, what? So sadly, even though this team was amazing, like you're saying, everyone was looking at it exactly like you described there with Fly. They're looking at it like, right, with just Fly and No Tail. They've lost Miracle, who looked in some of the games that he's carrying the team. And they've lost their captain and Crit. Well, he wasn't the captain, Fly was the captain. But you know what I mean? They lost like a key support player. So it's like, you can't replace these players. And if you actually look at the players that come in now, the key thing is on paper, they aren't replacements. Like if you tell someone, oh, we're going to just replace Miracle with Anna, people laugh in your face. This guy was like a substitute player for, I think it was IG, right? He was, you know, he had a little bit of chance, but he wasn't some like insane natural talent. S4, a lot of people thought he was washed up at this point in time. They were like, right, didn't work out for him. He was a very good player in Secret. That's been and gone. Jerax was obviously like, you know, a talent, but he hadn't quite flourished yet. He was good in the Team Liquid team, but they weren't the Team Liquid that obviously later on went on and won. So when you put this squad together, how did these players even come to you? It seems like a very diverse. Was it really just the players that were left? How did you get them in the squad?
We actually like Jerax and... I mean, it's like when we're left with the two-man roster and me, like two players, it looks really rough because you're like, this might end up very badly, you know, like if we don't like get the players that we want, and if, you know, like this might be like, we might have to start from scratch, and like, and we might not even get to play at all. So it looked extremely scary. Like people don't realize that at that point, OG, like that was probably one of the moments where OG was the lowest, like all times. And this is when like people started freaking out, and we had to stick together. It's also the reason why I was mentioning that I had to confirm it right away, because we needed to start building. Like, it was about building. Like we needed like 1000%, you know, like foundations, like very solid foundations. The names of S4 and Jerks, they came pretty quickly. These were players that we had immense respect for these players, and these were like first choices, both of them. So we got pretty, I don't know if we got lucky or something, but it was a blessing that they actually accepted, both of them. X4 was like captaining Alliance back then, I think, and Jerix was in Liquid. So yeah, we actually ended up getting their goal. So that was great. That was amazing. But actually the way it happened is that when S4 and Jerix accepted, Miracle had not. We didn't know he was leaving.
Right.
We only knew that Crit and Moon. Moon was going to get removed, and we knew that Crit was leaving. So we had a 5-man roster at that point. Yeah, that's actually what happened. And then when Miracle announced that he was going to leave, yeah, it happened in that order. He announced while we were recruiting them. It wasn't completely done. Like we had approached them, and they were like taking their time to answer. Then Miracle was like, I'm not gonna stay because of this and that. And then there was this brief period of time where we ended up with a 2-man roster. And this is when it got really scary. And then we had to like let S4 and Jax know, because obviously that's an information you gotta have, that all right, sure, Miracle is not staying. So are you still in or you're not? And they confirmed that they were still gonna be in. And then that was a 4-man roster because there was no Ana in the picture. We went to scout Ana later. We actually had no solid option for the 5th player at that point. We were only a 4-man roster. And we started going through scenarios and started watching a lot of replays and just like scouting pretty much. And then Ana came to the equation, and we started like considering him as a player. Obviously, he hadn't shown anything. It was mostly pub games that we were watching, and we were like, yeah, that guy he looks to be a really good player, blah, blah, blah. Let's talk to him, see how he is as a person and whatnot. And we ended up confirming him on the roster. But there was this very scary, I don't remember, it was like 5 days or a week where we had to hear back from S4 and Jerix whether they wanted to keep. Had they said, all right, change of plans, if Miracle's not going to be in the team, we don't want in, God knows what would have happened. It would have looked really scary. And I'd like to think we would have like found a good option, but then it would have been really, really tricky.
Okay, so again, as people will know, I mean, the OG story is really like some sort of a movie, because what's great is it has all the like amazing twists that are positive, but then it has the really negative twists as well that keep you entertained, So again, if you saw this lineup on paper, like, yeah, a bunch of these are good players, but it's not a lineup on paper that says like definite champions, best team again. So you come straight out and won the Boston Major. You again continue the streak, but with a different squad from the past majors. So what worked so well immediately about this team?
I mean, it was like Fly, Note, and I staying strong pretty much through all this, and keep like sticking to the principles that we had in that team, like what we believed in when it came to the Dota part and the non-Dota part, and like mixing this with what the players had to bring, like S4, Jerix, like this fresh look on the game, heroes they were playing, the way they looked at the game themselves, just making it even better, like getting good mix of things and getting stronger from these additions and staying strong. And not letting any of this storm affect us. Just staying strong through the storm and waiting for the sun to shine again. Pretty much, that's what made that team stronger. Like had we given up, or had we became weaker, or how we broke during that period of time, then the OG dream would have been dead, like buried, like once and for all. But we stayed through hard times, and it ended up paying off. And we won the Boston Major, then we won the Kiev Major. So there was actually not a major that we lost like during that period of time, even though we went through this very, very rough roster shuffle. And that's something to be proud of. And like the promise that we did each other is that, all right, sure, this looks pretty bad. I mean, there's only 2 players and stuff, but we're gonna stick together. We're gonna stay strong. I mean, it did pay off right away, like faster than what we could have asked for, honestly.
Right, obviously ignoring last year's Dota circuit, where they did devalue the term major a bit by making like 12 of them or something, It's not quite as cool as when there was like 3 in a year, and it's like, as a result, if you, like when OG could say we won 4, that's pretty fucking baller. So here's the question is, clearly the major circuit did work. Like what Valve wanted to do, where you had TI, and even though there was an amazing circuit aside from that, every other tournament was like, yeah, but it's not TI, you know. So even if you win 5 of those, if you then don't win TI, it is kind of like you failed. Even though you shouldn't really think that way, but you can't help but because of the way the structure was. So they did do a great job of putting the majors, so they felt like they were between the two. They were obviously better than any other tournament, but they weren't TI, but it meant there was something else to win. In fact, if anything, I'll tie it into this. It addressed that problem I said earlier, which is if you were like some of those great teams of the past, Team Secret, Team DK, where you were the best team in the world, but unfortunately 3 months before the major and then at the international, and then you didn't win the international, it's easy for people now to forget you. But if you'd have won majors, then people would remember that's a big thing to win. So since this team and the different squads you had in OG didn't do very well at the internationals, but won the majors, aside from you, a lot of the majors were just won by like one-off teams. You know, it wasn't teams winning many of them. So was there something different about what a team needs to win a major than an international?
As you said, the majors they felt very special. So I think it maybe like it's kind of the same things you have to go through to win them and win TI. Maybe at TI everything is just like amplified. So everything is like harder, but it's kind of the same things, you know, like it's not that much different. It's just that at TI it's more of everything. It's whatever, more pressure, more stakes, more Dota, more teams looking at you, more everything. But besides that, I'd say it's kind of the same. At least like these majors, the all majors. The major throughout last season, obviously, it's very different. It's just like another tournament. But the other majors, they felt very special for some reason. And I know I might get some flack because people are going to say that I'm saying this because we won most of them. But it's actually what it felt like. Like whatever people think, it's just how it is. It just felt different. Obviously, when you have 12 versus 3, the cash prize also different. Like the cities, it's just different. It's like the names also. It's like it's called like, you know, the Manila major. It's like a city, a region.
Yes.
It feels like it's much more like it's just the way it was made. Everything was just much different. Like there's less Dota being played throughout the year, so everybody just looks up to it. Like the players also, like everybody's like, I can't wait for this big tournament, like to see these like play size clash and stuff. Whereas the other majors, we played 2 majors the same week. Like how's the hype? Like nobody cares anymore. Everybody's burned out. No, like it's just much different. So yeah, no, these majors were amazing, and it's little TIs pretty much.
What was different though about this OG team? Obviously 3 different players. So how was it different in terms of like the way you set up the team, how you divide the resources up, how you draft even maybe?
Game understanding, drafting, mentality. That's what was different.
Was it harder to work with a player like Anna, a newer player that you don't have a history with?
It was not harder at all. Like Anna's such a great guy. I got along with him very well, and I did as a coach. It was kind of challenging because he had close to no experience, and he had a lot to learn when it came to the in-game part. Also, like a lot to learn. So this is when I started actually grinding Dota as a coach, whereas before I was mostly with the old OG squad. Be focusing only on the macro, like was, you know, it was better for me to just watch replays, for example, than to grind. But when Anna joined, I realized that there's a lot of things to catch up on. So I started grinding like mid. I've never played mid in my life at that point.
Sure.
And I was like, I don't even remember, but I was like some 6K, 7K. I was just chilling, like learning, you know, like testing stuff in pubs. But when Anna joined, I realized like this is how I can help this team the most. I started playing like 10 pubs every day. And mid lane only, just to understand. He was also very young. He was 16, like not even 17. Like it was hard for him to like put words on what the game, like what he was getting from the game. You know, like expressing what he needs, what he doesn't like, what he likes in the game. It was purely raw talent expressing itself, and I felt like it was up to us to help him. Yeah, help him translate whatever Dota was doing to him, and I could only do that if I got in his head, like in his shoes, like as a player. It's how I felt at least, and yeah, that's why I started grinding, and up to the point where, oh sorry, I'm gonna cough. Up to the point where it just became easier and easier for me to understand what he needed. It got me to some. I pretty much became a mid player. Like I pretty much became a mid player. Got to some 9.5k. That's how far it got me. I also ended up realizing I'm actually a better player than I thought I was. Only thanks to him and through grinding. It helped me a lot also on the personal level, but that's another story. But yeah, it helped us adapt to him faster and better, and it just made the team dynamic much more like smooth overall.
So then, obviously, everyone who knows the history of Dota knows S4. He's TI champion, one of the best players of all time. Even when he was in secret, I remember people used to call him the best mid player when they were in their peak, So a fabulous player. But in your team, playing the off role, playing in a different type of a team, what was he bringing to the team, and kind of how did he conceive of him as a player at this point in his career?
At that point, he was very focused on himself, which is understandable because he had to shift from mid to offlane, and he's extremely, extremely demanding, like towards himself. He does not accept anything else than being the best, which is a great thing to have. So at that point, that guy became like probably the best offlaner in the world at that point in a matter of like 2 months, which is like an incredible achievement, honestly. Like he was one of the best mids, and he became one of the best offlaners in the world. He was setting the meta. He was setting like everything. Like people just started copying him straight up. Like 2 months after he switched to that role, and I'm talking players that had been offlane for like 4 to 5 years at the highest level. So that's pretty mind blowing. But the direct consequence of that is that he couldn't focus too much on others. Like people might think he helped Ana a lot with the mid lane, but he couldn't. Like he was focused on himself, which is totally fine. And to be honest, there were enough cooks in the kitchen in that team. Like we didn't need another one. So the team dynamic was perfect. He of course then started implementing ideas. Like he also brought a lot on the macro thing, but like that was more like in a longer time period. But I mean, what he brought is that we ended up having like the best offlaner in the world a couple of months after he joined, and he was just like carrying games with plays and ideas and approach. So yeah, he just brought an insane amount of experience, skill, and decision making. Also, like in-game decision making, a lot. Also, I think he's very good at that.
In both of those major runs with this lineup, you got to play in the semi-finals against evil geniuses who obviously had crit on the other side of the equation, right? Are you a guy, I know obviously like you sounded like you spoke very fondly of him, you admired him when he was in your team, but are you a guy, do you get any sort of pleasure out of revenge? Like, I'll give you a very quick example. Like there was once someone in my career who's like a well-known person in esports who basically just told me, and he was right at the time, it was before I'd like developed my persona, etc. He once told me like, you'll never basically work on camera in esports. Like that's not your job. You'll be behind the camera like a nerd, just writing things down. So every time I see him now, I can't lie, I smile extra wide when I see that guy. I'm so happy, it's like I can be petty like that. I like a bit of revenge sometimes. Do you have any of that? Do you take any special pleasure in beating people in that scenario? Because essentially when someone leaves, they are sort of saying, I think it's going to be better for me elsewhere.
No, I have a lot of that actually. I like to prove people wrong. It's something that fires me up like a lot. When I like the best motivating speeches I ever got were people telling me I couldn't do something. Like, it's like when I had someone walk up to me and tell me, "You're never gonna, you just give up, man. Like this is not happening. You're just straight up bad." This is when I'm gonna stop sleeping. Like like now I don't even need to sleep anymore. Like before that guy said anything, I needed my sleep, I needed my food. No, I don't need anything. I just need to work until I prove that guy, and not even him, just like until I just prove like generally that guy was full of shit, and I knew what I was doing and I knew where I was going. So there's a lot of this. When it came to playing against crit specifically, it wasn't that much of this because I have had always like the way we split was like it was very nice, and I respected his decision like 100%. I regretted it, but I respected it, and So it was more like of a challenge. I'm like, and he was drafting for EG back then. So when I was preparing against them, I had to I had to go try to be in his mind a little bit and understand how he was applying his own vision of the game. And obviously he knew a lot of how we looked at the game. So it was a real challenge. It's like that guy, it's going to be really hard because he understands how we think. And now he also went on his own journey. So, and he's an amazing Dota player and an amazing drafter. So it's going to be really rough. So it was extra challenging for me, which also drives me a lot. So that was more of the approach. Like beating them was extremely rewarding because it's like we outsmarted him a little bit, or maybe we didn't. It doesn't matter. Even if we think we did, that's already like a great feeling. Maybe he doesn't think this way. It doesn't matter how he looked at the series, but it's the feeling I got in this series where like the draft also was like really crucial and we got the most out of it. At least that's how I felt back then. I'm on the winner side, so maybe that's why, but it doesn't matter. It was just like an amazing challenge and beating an amazing Dota player. So super, super nice and super rewarding.
Okay, because actually, maybe this ties into it then, because that's a question I wanted to ask you. Okay, so as a layman, just watching the game again, just an idiot listening to the casters tell me what brilliant kills people are getting. I don't always know what's going on. I can't, even though as hopefully a mature adult, and when I think of myself as a professional, I can understand concepts like getting more out of players than you can see from outside of the team, or playing together. And team play obviously is kind of the invisible glue that makes a lot of the great teams amazing. We just look back now and say they were all the best players because they won all the championships. But I have to say, when I engage my fan brain and I look at these two lineups, that EG lineup and this OG lineup, my fan brain still tells me that EG should win these matches. Like if I look at their lineup, I can see why, if indeed it was, as the rumor says, some of the young stars who built this team, I can see why they wanted it, because on paper it looks like it's just going to beat everyone. So how can a team like OG beat a team like this? What's different about Dota in that sense?
It's because, but this comes a lot with the community thing we're talking about. Like people in OG, like I don't want to give names, but like a lot of the players in OG were highly underrated. Like players, I'm even going to include myself. Like I think we're not considered, like for some of us, like I'm going to take Noted as an example. Like he's not considered, he would maybe now that we want TI, and that's also the weird part about it. But like to me, that guy had always been like just one of the smartest, the smartest person I met in Dota. And people just don't understand it, or they don't want to, I don't know what it is, but he's not regarded as such. And I keep hearing about how amazing certain players are, and they probably are, but the one and only player I want to play with is No-Tail, and that's it. And so I know it might look weird to people, like how is OG beating EG, but at that point I'm like, I'm on the other side, I'm sitting there, I'm like, how do people think that EG stands a goddamn chance against us? Like, and I'm like, I don't even care actually why they think so. Like they just don't. And to me, it never made any doubt that we were the better team. It never did. And I know it sounds maybe even stupid, cocky or whatever, but it's just what it is. And when we faced Wings, for example, I did not have that feeling. And that feeling has nothing to do with the fact that we win or lose, actually. It's just like my read on Dota with the experience that I have and the game understanding that I have. And when I say Dota, I mean Dota as a whole, not like the in-game part, like everything, what makes a team good and what doesn't. So yeah, no, to me, we were the favorites, but that's something I kept to myself, obviously. And I was not surprised that we managed to beat them. Obviously, they're an amazing team, and they could have beaten us easily. I'm not saying that they didn't stand a chance, but like the way I express it is that I felt confidence. I felt a lot of confidence because of what we were bringing to the table that day. No, but yeah, I mean, I remember these majors. Like, I remember the Kiev major, for instance. Like, I think I ended up. I started working on the EG thing because it's like the one day to the other. I think it was like 6 p.m. I was done at 8 a.m. and we had to play at 3 p.m. on the next day. And I slept a couple of hours. Then I ended up like finishing whatever I wanted to like present to the guys to, like crunch it so that it was not too much information, just like what they needed. in order to get ready for the series. So I had to be like ready to like well spoken at some 10 a.m. or whatever it was. Then I did it, watched the series, then I crashed like because like and it kept happening. So it's like that was a daily schedule, right? And then the series like is done around whatever it was, like it's done at some 5 p.m. Sleep until 8 or 9 and get back to it to the next day till some 7 and then repeat. Boston was almost the same. But whenever it was against some teams, it's like...
Were you able, when you did that though, like if you go that deep, like I found this myself with research and knowing people who are coaches in other games, like sometimes if you go too deep, as you were saying before when you were talking about like playing against wings, you might like get like, how would you describe it? Like tunnel vision too much. You think like, right, I know exactly what they're going to do now, which sure can be bad. But also the reason why you do it is because every now and then you do find that like gem, you get like 20 games in and you find that one thing. It's like, right, this game. Did you find some things that actually really did apply in the game?
I did. It's like when I invest so much that I'd like to think that I become their captain. Like I think the same as them.
Okay.
Like when the next day happens, I'm the EG captain. Like I know exactly. I'd like to think, at least it's what I try to aim. Like I want to know exactly what they want, what they like, what they don't like, how they think about the game. Like how they think about the game. Now I also think the same because I've been like eating and looking at their replays like for an entire night. Replays, it's just everything I can find. Like everything I can find. I'm EG that day and then I'm going to tell them what I don't want to happen as EG or VP or whatever team I study. But my point was that like some teams, I didn't feel it's not the same fire. And then like that EG with crit, it was that type of fire. Like the fire that's going to keep me going for an entire night without noticing until I'm just like dead tired. And then I just have to get some sleep. But that's what it was for EG, and we these tournaments, like we got what we wanted. I got what I wanted from the drafts and everything. And I remember we ended up like banning certain heroes because we just predicted that against us, it's what they were gonna do, even though they didn't do it the entire tournament. This is how far it can get, and how far it got in that tournament. It's like we were able to guess the strategy. Their pocket strategy against us before they even did it.
Because as I said, when you look at like that lineup on paper, yeah, it looks like a super team. But this is something that, I mean, it applies to all team games and team sports as far as I can tell. The problem is, if you don't know the players personally, all you can go on is their skill and how they look. And you try in your brain to make like almost a mathematical equation of this player plus this player would, and the equals for the super team should be amazing. It should be the best ever. But to be fair, almost all super teams, almost every single one I've seen in any team sport or team esport, it doesn't end up actually being the ultimate best team. And in fact, you get these teams, Wings is a perfect example of where if you took that Wings team, when they played, they looked perfect. But if you took each player and put them on 5 different Chinese teams, I don't think almost a single one would be considered the best at his role in China or Dota 2 at all. So clearly there was something beyond what you can just see that made them that good, right? So what do you think this aspect is in a team? Because it's clearly something you've kind of tried to stress by, if you get a core that works, you stick with it.
It's really hard to know, to be honest. I don't really have a clear answer on that question because...
Because, for example, if you come to make a move, like I know in some of these examples, you didn't always have a choice. Someone left the team. But if you had to make a roster move and you have to pick someone up tomorrow, presumably you're not just thinking, let's get the most skilled player we can. Like there's some kinds of qualities you're thinking of that like this would fit ours, or we need, or maybe it's something you don't have in the team and how do you envision it that way? Because some people, by the way, by this lineup, clearly do just go and try and get the best players and think maybe we'll win.
I actually usually look at, I mean, I don't even know what I look at. It's mostly my game sense. It's like I look at the game. I look at replays mostly. Obviously, if I don't know the guy, I want to talk to him. Like that's really important. Just feel the guy like on a human level. But most of the time, you know them because you've met them before and stuff. But the talking part is really important. It's like an interview. Like not as in I'm interviewing him. Like we're interviewing each other. It's like a meeting. You want to meet him. Like. Not only through the game. So that's a pretty important part. And the other part is just like looking at the game itself and just letting the game talk. Like I just when you look at a game, I look at someone play, I can tell, or like I get an idea whether I think he's a really good player or he's just a good player or he's like, I don't want to
So
say
it's not
mediocre.
all conscious. Some of it's kind of like intuitive.
Yeah, a lot of it is intuitive. Actually, I think it's not all conscious. There's a good balance between both, but a lot of it is intuitive. It's like sometimes I look at certain plays and maybe nobody noticed, but I'm like, wow, what just happened here is insane. Or like the item decision making, or like whatever, like some small things. It's like I can tell if that guy's playing to all he cares about is winning the game, or if he thinks about it, how he looks like these things I can tell from just looking at Dota, because I've played so much Dota and I've watched so much Dota that Dota talks more than anything else. Like at least to me.
This was obviously a team where, as we've described that past pattern, because basically until you got to, it was actually the story of your career until you got to this OG now, where it actually looked the least likely to win the international, which is, it's always those few months before the international that the results drop off a bit. And this was where the same thing happened with this squad. You came from being number one to going down. What were the struggles? What were the challenges of trying to get this team to international and do well for this one?
The second one, you mean, with the S4 Jax?
Yes.
I think we had a really good run, and it was mostly a meta thing actually with that team. The meta was very good for us, or maybe we adapted really well to the meta. I don't remember which order, like how it went, but like up after the Kiev major, there was some huge nerfs to certain heroes that we had been running a lot, and just the meta shifted also, and the dynamic in the farm distribution. I don't remember precisely everything it was. Like going through the logs would help me, but I just remember that there were some huge meta changes, and we had a hard time adapting, just because of what we could bring to the table, like as players. It actually pushed us out of our comfort zone when it came to how we like to play the game, and we just did not adapt in time. We couldn't adapt in time. We just didn't have time to adapt. Like the game just completely changed, like a couple months before TI, and we couldn't adapt in time. And other teams, the changes that happened, it was really good for them, and they were playing on a much higher level than we were, and we tried really hard to catch up to that level, but there was too much for us to figure out what they do and what they do good that we can use, and figure out what we should be doing ourselves. It was just like, it was too messy, and we never, maybe if we had like more time before TI, then we could have performed better. That's what I think, at least, or like performed the level that we did at the majors. But at TI, I just don't think we performed well enough. It was mostly pretty bad timing for us, and we did not have time to prepare. Or maybe we did, and we didn't use that time properly. Whatever it was, we were not ready for that TI.
When something like this happens, and obviously now for OG it had happened twice. So they were winning the majors, which, as we talked about, like the best tournament except TI, champions at a bunch of majors, and then they come to the international every year, expected to be one of the best. And here's the thing, it's bad enough to have like a placing where you're like third and you just miss out on it. So, but obviously to not even get a top placing it's even more crushing. How did the team handle it? Like if it happens once, maybe you say, that's one off. But if it happens twice, that does start to look like there's some sort of pattern here, or we've got some weakness when we're at this tournament. Did these things come up? Were these discussed?
Yeah, there was definitely certain things that were identified that how to put it, that stopped us from performing, or like didn't help us perform. And these things we try to tackle as soon as we identified them. It's just a really hard moment to go through, because obviously all this hard work and all these hopes that you had before going in, then they just get crushed all at the same time. So it's rough, but at the same time, it kind of teaches you to let go sometimes. Like you can't control everything. Like you win some, you lose some, right? Like there's a saying that says you win some, you lose some, and it's true. Like you win some, you lose some. Like sometimes you lose. Like it's just how it is, and you have to learn to accept it. And if you don't, and you can learn from a loss, and you can let the loss break you. Like I'm talking like that's -10 +10 difference, and you can't let that happen. Like if your goal is to win, like I'm talking, you either get better or you let it break you. Like you can't let that happen at all. Like if you're a competitor, you need you need to learn with it. Like, you need to just let go, deal with the loss, and learn from it. That's really what we try to do at that point, and also, of course, look at what could have been done better and bounce back from it. We try to do both. Of course, it was a really devastating experience. Like this TI loss, it was really rough. Like all the TI losses, it's heartbreaking. It's everything, like whatever word you want to use. But I do think that we bounced back pretty quickly, like, and we didn't let it get to us too much, which is something I'm very proud of. Like, I'm proud of the guys. I'm proud of us that we didn't, as you said, it was now, like, thinking back, it was two really rough TIs for us, like really rough. And I don't want to say unfair because I don't consider that unfair. You get what you deserve. Like, it's just how it is. But,
okay.
Or like, you get something, like, but it was in a sense, it was pretty rough. Like winning these major, losing one TI, then you win the majors again and you lose again. Yeah, it can get to you.
Right, when the shuffle happened after this, which was where Anna, and this is the thing that's interesting about this move. It's one thing if a player just says, right, it didn't work out, and either, I want to play for this team, or maybe I just don't like this team at the moment and I want to play. That's one thing, and anyone can understand that. But when someone basically says, I'm actually going to literally just quit Dota for like a year and take a hiatus, that sounds like something serious happened. Like, was it the TI result that was just such a blow? Why did he literally just decide, like, no more Dota for a while?
I mean, the thing with Anna is that I think he got like, he didn't expect all this to happen. I think he was just a young boy that was pretty good at Dota, like wanted to play Dota, wanted to, like be on a really good team and wanted to win a tournament. But then he just happened to join a European team, like live abroad, far from his family, far from his friends, travel all year, become like some Dota superstar that wins majors, that has like thousands of fans around the world. And I don't think it just happened too fast for him, And I think he did not have the fire and the motivation to match all this. Things just happened and he had to deal with it, and he had to ask himself, like, is this really what I want? Like, is this what I envision? Like, like he was missing home, like some things that, any, like, or like not any, but like very understandable things. Obviously, had he envisioned this before and had he thought about it, like, this is what I want and this is what I'm willing to sacrifice for it, things could have been different. But the way it happened for him, it just happened too fast. So these questions, they arrived after instead of being there before. Like, is this really what I want? And how far am I willing to go in order to get this? He just got it, And anyway, so I'd say that his motivation before TI also was fluctuant. Like, it was not at the highest. It was not that he was not motivated, but he didn't want it as bad as some players I've met. He just, a lot of good things were happening to him, and he was very talented, and and of course he was working hard, but not as hard as what he could have been working. And it was also one of the reasons why we couldn't adapt quickly enough for TI, because we lacked some of that fire, like, all right, we're going to have to start from scratch. Let's just do it. We lacked a little bit of this. And the question after we lost to TI, and it's a very hard experience, is like, the motivation was already like, we needed a surge of motivation, and it went a little bit lower after TI. So it's like, he really had to, we pushed him to really ask himself, like, what is it that you want, like for yourself? And he needed time for that, and he took it, which is a really good thing. It's a mature thing to do. We helped him with the decision also. We try to like give him the advices that we have, like with the experience that we had, like, this is what we think you should be doing. Had he said, no, I disagree, I think that the best move is this, we would have went with it. But obviously, we had like infinite trust, and he also trusted the experience that we have, and he knows that our intentions are only good. Like, we're trying to help, and the decision ended up being him, going back to the life that he missed, and rebuilding that motivation and firing up again.
I've noticed a theme in OG seems to be that despite the fact your team is winning majors, which, the career accomplishments a lot of people want, and usually when a team's a winning team, that's one of the great things about being a winning team. Other people want to win, so they come and knock on your door. Oh, like, can I join? Oh, is there a player leaving? Yeah. Like, usually, as you see with, I mean, EG is the obvious example, like they actually haven't won in a while, but they still have that like aura around them where people think if I'm on EG, I might have a chance to go far in TI, I might win stuff. Now, I will say, I don't know the Dota scene well enough to know like the economics. So, for example, in Counter-Strike, it sometimes happens. Someone's like, do you think this player would join that team? And I'm like, well, of course not. This other team pays twice as much. So sometimes there are other factors at play, yes, than how good the team is. But I've noticed the theme in OG seems to be that despite winning the majors, it's almost like people get spooked by bad international runs. And so it never seemed like you had your choice of just whoever you want. You never had all the big free agents coming and saying, I'll replace him, let me join. You always was having to get someone where it's like, right, he's sort of a good player, but how would he fit in this team and what would happen? And it's always kind of a experiment in a way, the OG squad. So why do you think that is? Have you ever noticed?
Yeah, I mean, that's I think it's still related to like the community thing, where like some players are regarded by the community or the casters or whatever it is, like as being like the absolute best, and some aren't, and or not as much and stuff. So maybe I do think it's still related to this, and then they just end up wanting to join or they don't. But I think it's mainly related to this, and I think it's a pretty good thing. I don't think it's a very comfortable position to have like a lot of a lot of offers, and it creates a lot of pressure.
Yes.
Even for the players that are in the team, knowing that all these players want to join really badly and stuff.
Also, actually tempts you, funnily enough. This is why I don't blame EG. It tempts you to do those super team lineups because you think, well, I could get this one Whitmer. I could also get the best 4 position. Let's get the best 5 as well. It's like not looking for the same qualities always.
To me, I mean, it's tempting, but you have to be weak to fall for the temptation. So it's like I still think there's some blame to teams that get affected by it.
Okay.
But of course, the more temptation, the hardest it is to not fall for it. But like you should know yourself, know your team, and know whether there is a change that needs to be made or not. And if there is none, it doesn't matter what's out there. Like there's no change to be made, and that's it. That's all you need to know. And rest is just whatever. You get an offer, you push it away, and you keep going. At least it's the way I look at things.
So when Resolution came in, and obviously people will remember it was like just over a year before when he did that TI run with the Digital Chaos team, where it was kind of like an amazing one-off Cinderella run. This is another person who didn't have a massively established Dota career. Obviously that was one of the first big teams he'd been on, and actually it hadn't been a big team before that TI run. Who did you see him as, and what was the philosophy of what you were trying to do with him? Because obviously, unlike a lot of the other moves we're talking about, this wasn't one that had like a really great happy ending where it all went awesome. This was one of the more kind of troubled pickups the team had.
I mean, we looked at him as a really good player, like a player that had a lot of experience and was very versatile and extremely motivated. So certain things we thought we had lacked on the last season also. Obviously extremely good mechanically, like very good under pressure. Like at least it's the guess that we took. We haven't played with him, but all this is what it looked like. Also from experience, I mean, I had known the guy for a very long time, almost since Dota 1.
Oh, okay.
So it sounded like a perfect fit. So yeah, we just went through and we were also in contact with him, as in like not like whether he wanted to join or not, just like he was part of the guys we used to talk to at events. So
right.
Also like exchanged about like the game and reads on the game and whatnot. So it felt like a good fit. So we just went on with it and asked him whether he would be interested or not to join OG. After Anna decided to leave the team for a while, or like just leave the team, pretty much.
So obviously it didn't work out very well in this particular lineup. Like this isn't the one where you have the story where you win a major afterwards and everything's great again. This lineup was a troubled lineup. It couldn't find its form necessarily. And Resolution was the first one to leave. He didn't even wait for a TI run. So what do you think, what was the disconnect? What didn't work about him in the team, or for him, what didn't work, do you think?
It was mostly in-game disagreements. I don't want to say disagreements even. It's more like the way he looked at the game was too different from the way the rest of the guys, and including me, we were looking at the game. It was very different. I don't think we. So you never know whether he was looking at it wrong or he just like doesn't have that experience where like he doesn't look at it right, or you never got to understand the way he looks at it. This we will never know, but we tried everything that was in our power to understand. Like we really tried everything we could come up with, and we didn't get to that point. So whether there was like we understood everything we could and the rest is like it was just wasn't there, or we didn't understand, that we'll never know. I'm happier with the scenario where we failed him and we didn't understand, because I mean obviously he had great result with his tournament stuff. He probably knows, like from his experience that he got with other teams and looking back at the experience with us, he would probably be able to answer that question. As for me, I don't really know what it was, but it wasn't clicking at all. And it got to we tried a lot, you know, like it was like some 7 months of like losing or not even making it to majors. Like it was really rough because of the sacrifices that you have to put in just in order to be able to do this for a living. Like so it's rough when you lose that much. It's just really rough, and you keep trying, which is what we did until the point where it got to the point where it's like this was not heading anywhere, and I'm pretty sure he would very much agree to this. So then you have to go through changes. It sucks, but sometimes it happens. Like, changes happen. There's nothing bad with them, unless when they were not needed, and they still happen. In that case, I definitely believe a change was needed.
So people forget that actually before the others left, before S4 and Fly left, you already had to come back as a player, because there was like that tournament where you had to stand in for S4, right? Yeah, you stood in for S4, and then Resolution left, and then yes, you were already back as a player, so you played as a player. And obviously at this point in time, you played mid, as you said, or carry position because you'd been practicing it for Anna anyway. That part of the story all makes sense. When you came back as a player initially, obviously just initially temporarily, and then as having to fill in it just because you needed a player, was it actually in your mind like, I could be a pro player again? I mean, it'd been quite a few years at that point in time.
It's like, it wasn't in my mind. I mean, it wasn't in my mind because a lot of people were actually asking me, because they would play against me in pubs and stuff, and they would just write me, like other pro players, like, why aren't you playing? Like, what is it that makes you want to coach more than you play? Or do you actually want to coach more than you play and stuff? So people would ask me this in interviews and stuff. So that kind of gives you the thought of it. At the same time, I was always really realistic. And so what I thought with OG is that what I could do as a coach, I did not believe that it was replaceable. I couldn't think of anybody that could do it as well as I did. And as a player, that was not the same. I thought a lot of players could do what I would do as well, if not better. So that's what I thought. And my only purpose was to get the team to win, like whatever it takes. Like, how can I bring as much value? Like, how can I bring the maximum value to this team? And the answer that I was getting, like, I was under the impression that me coaching was just better for the team. So regardless of what I wanted is the team to win. I wanted us to play at the highest level of Dota, whether it's me playing or me coaching, whatever it is. This is the number one priority. This is what makes me happy. Anything else than that makes me sad, whether I play or coach. So that was the reasoning. So it was somewhere in my head, but I didn't have like this like very strong will to play. The will to play started building up when I felt like what I was doing as a coach stopped transitioning in the game because of these like structural disagreements, where like we were not playing as a team at all. So whatever work you put in as a coach, it doesn't transition. There's a lot of it that is just lost because it doesn't get applied. And then I felt like, what's the point of me like sacrificing all this and giving this my 1000% if my impact is just limited? There's nothing I can do about it. And then I need this win to happen. Like I need to keep going. Like I really want to win. So how can I? Then I started thinking like, what is it that I can do more than that? And I did not believe that. I wasn't sure. Like I did not have a clear like me playing will fix it. I didn't have that because obviously I hadn't played for a very long time. Like at least at this competitive level. I mean, of course I was grinding pubs, but pubs are pubs and competitive is competitive. So yeah, at that point, I was left with no options. I was like kind of clueless. I was trying to keep reinventing what I was doing as a coach, and yeah, try to keep giving my best and try to keep looking for solutions. But it was a moment where like I was kind of doubting, like what is it that I can do to fix it, or maybe there's nothing that I can do. But I don't like that. I generally don't buy that scenario.
There's a lot of teams out there that didn't win the championship, but they show something in their tournament run. Like they beat a certain opponent each time, or maybe like the old Cloud9 used to be able to do really well in the upper bracket and then just lost all the time for someone coming from the low bracket. There's something there that at least you can take an upside from it. In this run that you had before the guys left the squad, I can actually see as an outsider, like I don't necessarily blame them as just someone looking at a team on paper, because some of these runs have almost nothing positive going for them. Like the second you hit the bracket stage, it's just immediate elimination, and that makes it look like this is a broken lineup, which doesn't work. Even though obviously from a friendship angle and the idea of going through those losses like we talked about, yes, you want to believe it can work and you can turn it around and all those things you said in your blog. It's kind of understandable that something had to change.
No, I mean, I definitely understand where you're coming from, because the in-game part, that's what it reflected. But the in-game part was a consequence of what was happening outside of the game.
Okay.
And what was happening outside of the game is that, so me stepping in as a player, it was, I don't think everybody believed in it as much. Some players, some did and some did not. And much more than that, some players still believed like 100% in whatever the team had to offer in terms of like players, whatever structure, but and some didn't. I think what we came up with to as like a plan B after Roman left the team satisfied some people and didn't satisfy others. Like some believed that this was the team we could win TI with, and some didn't. Even at that point already, I would say, but they still wanted to give it a try and see. But the thing is, like, you don't. So this is like a huge change, right? Like you don't have a coach anymore. Your coach plays. You have like a role switch in the game also. Like these are a lot of things to adapt to. Like first of all, also this was me returning to competitive, so I'm gonna need a little bit of time to get used to the highest level, playing under pressure in front of audience and whatnot. It's gonna take me whatever, like maybe a couple games, maybe 3 games, but these are games. And there was the ever changing like patches, like every week.
Yes.
On top of all this, like you have to rediscover the meta, come up with new ideas. So we had to figure out like team chemistry, role distribution. What do we do when we're not as prepared now for games because we don't have a coach? What is the best way to play in this patch? How we're going to prep against other teams? Like so much to, and in order to go through all this, if you don't have like blind trust and perfect atmosphere, like it's going to make it even harder, maybe even impossible. And that's kind of what it was. I did not feel enabled at all as a player in that roster. I felt like people did not believe in me for the most part, and that doesn't help. I'm sure some other people felt other things that didn't help them. The reason why that it wasn't successful, maybe it was not meant to be successful, but you never know until you really try. And I don't feel like we really tried. I felt like people were very fast to give up on things. I think people were just mentally very weak at that point. I mean, I want to say that I don't blame them, because I mean, I do blame them. I think like being weak mentally has no place in Dota, but it can happen. I mean, we've been like not having the greatest results for like 7 months, and if you don't believe in this, then it adds up. But at the same time, if you're weak mentally, you're not gonna win. Then accept to not be a winner. You know what I mean? Like people go through rough things in order to achieve great things. It's just how it is. So are you willing to go through it? Yes, then you might do it. Are you not willing to go through it? Then accept it, but also accept the consequences of it. At least it's the way I look at things. And I don't feel like in that roster we really went through it with the best approach. At least for some of us, and some of us did, but it's a team thing. If everybody's not on board, there's no team, no wins. Like, that's just how it is.
How did it change the dynamic of the team that you're no longer the coach? Because that's the other thing, it's not like you're just the coach from the player position, because even if you did that, people will react differently. Like if you're a player in the game, you share blame in things that happen. You might have fucked up stuff. So it's very different when you're the coach and you're like, I'm just here to help everyone. It's like, what was it, the dynamic like in the team in that sense? Because presumably you had to give up some of the control, right?
Yeah, definitely. You have to. I had to give up a lot of control. Now I'm just another player. That's all I was in that team. So I'm just a guy that focuses on his own game and brings what he has to bring to the table. Like I was a mid player at first, then I had to switch to the carry because we're trying to figure out this team dynamic and we were not patient enough to build really. So we just kept switching things up because we wanted it to click right away. Like we were too hasty. So I ended up being carry, a mid, and then the dynamic is like, the thing is that we never really found a dynamic that worked with Roman, like resolution. So we had to go back to the other dynamic, like the past one that we worked was the one with Ana, but it's really different. Like I'm no Ana, like my play style is very different. I don't play the same role. I don't play the same heroes. The patch has evolved also. We didn't figure out the patch back then. S4 changed also as a player, Jerix changed, like No-Tail changed, everybody changed. Like, and then you have to rebuild pretty much, and you can't just like go back to something you've been doing and like blindly apply it. You have to start from scratch, and that means accepting to go a couple of wrong directions first. Maybe you're gonna take the right path right away, then good for you. Maybe you're not gonna take it, and the chances are like that you won't take it are very high when the patch changes all the time. Like there's a lot to process, right? And it's kind of what happened. And the thing is, we had some glimpses of like brilliance, or like success with that roster in scrims mostly, unfortunately, where like we started finding something and then the patch would change and we had to start over, and this whole lack of trust like kept happening, and it just kept holding us back like constantly. We tried to fight it as much as we could. I remember having so many talks. We had so many talks at that point in the team, so many speeches, whether it was Johan, whether it was me, like but it just kept happening over and over again, until the point where I don't want to until the point where like it just happened that the team just split, right? But it all led to that point pretty much. People are just not willing to. I have a pretty. The way I look at it is that they were not willing to work hard enough for it. That's what I think. I think they were just not strong enough. It's unfortunate, but it's what it was.
Because of the career paths of Flying, No-Tail being together for so long and then winning all these majors together for so many years, etc. And people just imagining in their heads, like, right, well, even if the rest of the team changes, obviously Flying, No-Tail will always be like core members of the team and they'll always be in the OG squad. I think it was more outsiders who were like totally shocked by this move. Like, it's like people even forgot the bad results and all these words were thrown around, like really heavy words like betrayal and like, oh, they just chose money over friendship. All these crazy concepts were out there. But I did notice when you made this blog and when some of the players in OG talked about this, some of that was real, right? The emotional aspect. Like you even said in your blog, funnily enough, at the time, obviously, you didn't know you were going to win TI, but you even said literally, like, you basically have left when we were going to win TI together. Like you put that out there. That's kind of a pretty bold statement, actually, for the team that's never been that deep. So it hit you that hard?
It hit us really hard, for sure. This was probably like by far the most devastating thing I had to go through in Dota, like by far. It was also one of the biggest lesson I've learned. It goes hand in hand, right? But yeah, it hit us really, really hard. It's also probably the reason why we were able to bounce back that hard, because like it fires you up. It really does. But it was very hard for sure.
when you had to rebuild the squad, one of the most interesting moves, which funnily enough, because you're bringing in people like Topson, Anna comes back, the big headlines are different ones, but the one that I found the most interesting was No-Tail moving to hard support. What was the thinking behind this? I mean, this is someone where former star of the team, you know, one of the biggest names. Why did he move to that position?
It's like we had a like blank sheet in front of us, right? Like when they left, because now we have to start from scratch again, and obviously, like putting aside all the negativity of it, you get to rebuild the way you want to do it, and you get to start over with complete control of how you want to do things. And part of it was like we started over completely. So even to the point where it's like, what it is that you want to play. It started from that, and I mean, Johan expressed the will to like take over the captaining role in the game, or like at least play the position 5 / like early game and shot caller, kind of thing. And I mean, it's like, it's not even that we thought it was a good idea. It's like, if that's what he wants, then by definition it's a good idea. So
okay.
Yeah. So that's what happened. I also got to think about what is it that I really wanted to play, which was not mid nor carry. I just did this before because I had to, and I believe that I could do it to the highest level. But now it's like, if I can pick, then offlane is what I want to play. Obviously, Jerix had no intention to switch roles whatsoever, and then we started thinking about like which players we think would fit this team the most. And we also wanted players that would not come in with like their ideas to how they want us to play as a team. We wanted to have like complete control of this. I remember us saying like, we want soldiers, and it's pretty much what we wanted. As in, we want players that are really good at what they do, that of course have their own ideas to how they want to play. And of course, that is something we're not only gonna consider, it's like we're gonna incorporate it to the rest. We're gonna make it a team thing. But the way we approach like Dota and competition and everything, this is up to us. And this is how we're gonna win TI. Like doing this. When we built that team, we didn't build it to like try to recover. We built that team to win TI. The same we were gonna win TI with the other team. And I remember like my last message to Anna is like, or like my message when I asked him whether he wanted to join the team or not was like, do you want to win TI with us this year? Like, are we gonna win TI together this year? It's what it's always been, and it's what it ended up being, of course. So it makes it even better. But no matter what, that was the purpose of it. Like, of course, not only TI we're building, but what I mean is that we want to build a team that has what it takes to win it and win whatever comes.
So I thought a cool way to talk about some of these players in this lineup would be to actually refer to some of the things we did see in TI, because it's the one big tournament you played, obviously. So when you brought in Topson, and people know this story, that obviously he wasn't a pro player and he accepted very, very late, and then you took him to the tournament, right? When you talked before about teams, and like one of the things that's clear you value a lot in a player is experience, and that's something that in competitive level he doesn't have. When you were saying here, like you wanted soldiers, it did look from the outside as though this is one of the ways somehow you resolved that problem. Like obviously, as you said before, I forget who the player was earlier, but you can't catch someone up in experience. You can teach them things, you can tell them how to do things, but experience is something obviously you have to go through and you learn from yourself, and you build up your own intuitive understanding of the game. Right? It did seem as though in the TI8, there were times where, depending on the hero he was on, it's like you guys somehow helped make up for the lack of experience that he had. Like you told him, like, okay, it's going to be hard early game. Like just keep surviving until we'll help you get online later in the game. Or if at this point in the game, right, it's time to go. Was there more of a hands-on approach for Topson?
The in-game part, Topson has like he had complete control. Like he has like this guy he might not have experience like competitively, but when it comes to like playing Dota, that guy like is extremely experienced. Like he has a perfect understanding of what he does, like the heroes he plays, how he wants to play them and stuff. Like perfect as in the Dota part, like of course, like he lacks competitive experience, so but we can help him understand what's coming his way, and or like we can help him also like improve whatever he had going, like this is very good, this we don't think so, whatever, but like we don't he's gonna be the one in charge, like he isn't the one in charge, right? The one thing that he really lacks is like competitive experience, so that means like how is it gonna be, this TI, or like what's the pressure gonna feel like, how is he gonna feel in game, like things he hasn't felt before, all these things. But luckily that experience we have it, and we can help him prepare for it, and we can, even without him knowing, we can set him up for success. Like we don't even want him to understand anything is going on, like anything around him is going on, it's just he does what he has to do, rest is up to us. He's not the one with experience, he doesn't have to deal with anything, we deal with it. But no, that guy knows what he's doing, like he knows his Dota, like for sure he does. So he made it very easy for us in that sense.
One of the things people noticed about him at the international was like, clearly he had his heroes, that if he got those heroes, even if it's not a meta hero, it's not even that great in this particular lane, he was going to do well if he could get these specific ones. Was that part of the reason as to why the team actually did at times just ignore the meta and go with these picks that, in terms of the people drafting, they were wondering what the fuck's going on when they were the analysts,
Yeah, there was a bit of everything, of course, but yeah, I mean, he has a very unorthodox approach to the game, and the team definitely embraced that, and we really tried to adapt to that to the best way we can. And the best part about it, which is something we had predicted going into TI, is that other teams are not gonna know how to deal with it. You don't just deal with a guy that plays a bunch of heroes you haven't seen before. He doesn't just play them, like he just pushes them to the absolute best thing you can do with these heroes, because he's so passionate about them and he knows them so well. So if you can use that, then this is a big problem that other teams have to address, and for the most part they did not address it at all at TI. Which made that player probably a very scary opponent to have against you.
When we talked earlier about OG players, being underrated as individual players, not like members obviously of teams that win championships get rated, but individually, people weren't calling these the best players in their positions. Ana is obviously one of them, because as you said, if he'd have heard the criticisms people had in his first time in OG, probably never comes back, probably just retires or just says fuck it, or becomes a worse player. But in this international, by the time you got to the final, he was like one of the hard carries of the team at times. I mean, it's kind of crazy to imagine that the guy who joined OG is carrying like 3 out of 5 games in the grand final of TI. So what evolution did he have to undergo to become that player? Or how were you kind of envisioning him in this squad?
It's also people didn't notice or don't really pay attention to the fact that he switched role. Like Ana was never a carry player on OG. Like he used to be a mid player, and he didn't play carry for the biggest part of the year. I mean, as far as I know, he was trying out playing position 4 or something before he joined us. So when he joined us, he had to switch to carry pretty much. I mean, that was what he wanted to play. So that definitely helped. And he probably had practiced it on his side, but like competitively, this was his first experience playing carry. And it's obviously very different from playing mid, but yeah. No, I mean, Ana is very specific. Like he's obviously extremely talented, but we know him really well. He knows us really well. We've worked together, Johan, Jesse, and I, like Notail, Jax, and me. Like we have worked with Ana so much. We know each other's like to perfection almost. Like we know what to expect from each other. We know how to work together. We know how to play together. We know how to help each other. So it made everything very, very smooth. And I do believe it helped him shine a lot at that TI. I think he got a lot of confidence from us and from the tournament and from everything. And he just grew as a player, like during the tournament. before the tournament, during the qualifiers, during the preparation, and during the tournament. He just grew immensely as a player to the point where he just took over. Like in many aspects, he's just like things that were not, he would not take like responsibility for, then he just started doing it. And it's just amazing when you see that happen. It's like it's pretty much watching a player grow and watching him grow also as a person. And it was something that was amazing to witness and something that was great support too, you know, like it's just a great thing to have happened.
So when you went to the international and you had to go through the qualifiers and you got there, did the group stage rattle you at all? That it didn't go that great? It was like you had some good wins, some that were a little bit iffy.
No, not really. I think, of course, the first day we were unhappy with the results a little bit. It's like it's 1-5, or was it first 2 days? I guess 1-5. It's rough. It looks bad, and it kind of makes you feel bad. But you have to just like, you know, shove it. Like you can't just like let it affect you. We instantly started looking at what we were doing wrong, because we were obviously doing certain wrong. Like you don't just go 1-5 doing everything right. There's no such thing as being unlucky or lucky. So we just got back to work pretty much. It didn't affect what we thought our chances were going into the tournament. We just got to realize that there's more work to be done, and it's not like we didn't expect it. We knew it was coming our way, so it just came pretty quickly. Whether you were expecting it to come that quickly or not doesn't matter. Like just get to work. You're already wasting time thinking about it. So we just got to work and try to fix everything we could think of that had to be fixed, and it ended up working.
When we referred earlier, when you were with the last lineup and you beat the Evil Geniuses where Crit had joined them, in that scenario, this must be the ultimate revenge match when you played them in the upper bracket semis, right? It was also a very good game. So what did you think of this? Like, was everyone on the same page of like, got to beat these guys now for exactly that reason?
I mean, we actually didn't approach the games anything like our preparation to get to these games. It was like we didn't want to think about who we were going to play.
Okay.
Because obviously there was way too many things, like too much at stake for us. Like what has happened before, what it meant to us, Dota, non-Dota, everything. Like this was, of course, like a very, very special series. Probably the most special we've played in our careers. But you don't want to have these thoughts before you play, because then it's just like it kind of disrupts your focus. Like you're thinking about like who you play against instead of like just like being focused on the game and stuff. It doesn't help you win a team fight if you're gonna think that, oh, this is that guy. You know what I mean? Like just like win the team fight. So it's mostly after the series was over, and after like when we realized that all right, it's done, we beat them and we dropped into the lower bracket. Of course, like it felt really good because it just meant a lot to us. I think it did, and it meant a lot to me. I know it meant a lot to Johan. I don't know how much distance he had with the series. Where if he, as for the two new guys, like the two newcomers, I think they felt like it meant a lot to us. So it most likely meant a lot to them also, but obviously on a whole different level. But there was definitely like some transfer where they just wanted to win for us, pretty much. So that felt also really good. But it was actually the emotions after the EG games were pretty high. Like we were really. It's also a team that, regardless of what has happened and this rivalry and whatnot, like all these unsolved things, like it's mostly the fact that this was arguably one of the best teams in the tournament.
Yes.
And they had beat us in the group stages, and I think we had like a lot of respect for the Dota they were playing. They were definitely one of the toughest opponents, maybe the toughest opponent we faced at that point in the tournament. So beating them also meant that we just beat like one of the favorites or one of the best teams at that point. So that was part of it, you know, like we just managed to beat like, a team that was definitely the favorites going into that series, maybe when you look at the tournament.
So when you got to the upper final, you played obviously the same LGD that you ended up playing in the final itself, and so we got to see a lot of games between the two teams, and this was a squad where all the time that you met in the group stage and the upper final and the final, every game was like super close, and there was some amazing back and forth moments. Right, this was supposed to be one of the best teams in the world. And in fact, I think a lot of people thought like I did. I thought the storyline was like, yeah, great story for OG. Like they got together, they beat OG. But sorry, it ends now. You know, it's LGD's time to win. Like this is awesome. And obviously the games looked in a lot of them like it was going that way. Right, can you give me some thoughts on the upper bracket series and obviously the now infamous Game 3, which will probably haunt LGD forever, I'm sure.
I mean, it's like whatever we had going outside of the game, it was the same in the game. Like it's like at no point in these games I remember any of us like talking about like whether the game was hard or whatever. We just believed like the entire way that we were gonna win because this is what we're looking at. That we're gonna do this and that and even Game 3. I actually remember what happens like. When they start throning us and they start buybacking, TPing in, we're talking about the fact that they're just losing the game right now. Like they actually lost. And as soon as I remember like TB buys back and TP's in, what we're actually saying is that they lost. They just lost the game. Like we're starting to cheer and try to not not cheer too much because looking back at it, it sounds insane because they're actually throning us. But I don't think we realized that they were throning us. I think we're just in the moment and we're just looking at what we can do to win this game. And at that specific moment, that guy just buys back, TP's in. If he dies, the game is over. And we definitely felt like he was gonna die because we had the tools to kill him. So as soon as he does that, we actually thought we won the game. So it feels like, I mean, people probably thought we lost, but we would disagree with that because we thought we won at that point. So it's just a weird feeling. Of course, the game was amazing. We also think the game was amazing because it was a really hard game to play. They played amazing. They won a lot of like small battles that we were, of course, like planning to or trying to win. They outplayed us at many moments in the game, and we also outplayed them at in answer, but like generally speaking, it was a really hard game to play because of how well they were playing and how much they were pressuring us. They were there were no rooms for mistakes whatsoever. I mean, had we done one mistake defending the space, like one crucial mistake, the game would have been over, like 100%. But we didn't, and we managed to stay strong through all this and come back to win it. And it was obviously an amazing feeling. It's like getting to the grand finals is also really, really amazing. Like you start realizing that you're achieving something great, like something that is like much bigger than you. And like in the moment, we didn't realize how badly the game was.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually didn't realize. I don't know if we're being like how to put it, delusional, or if we're just being ourselves. Like it didn't get to us like whatsoever.
Did this tie into what you were talking about earlier, like your mentality of sort of like luck happens, but it's kind of like if it's meant to happen, it meant to happen. If it isn't, then you had to learn something from that, because obviously this is a moment where like you say, maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but like it's not entirely just in your hands if you win the game or not. Like they have to sort of do you a favor and do something slightly wrong that opens up a moment where then you can do something amazing. So in these scenarios, I always wonder, because on the one hand you do everything you can, but on the other hand you're a bit powerless as well, right?
I mean, in that game specifically, we didn't feel like we felt like we were gonna win. If they don't, it got to the point in that game, it's like, if they don't win, then we're gonna win, right? Like, it's like, and we don't see how they can win right now. Like, obviously, for the biggest part of the game, maybe the entire, like, 99% of the game, we were not in a position where we looked like we were gonna win. And they probably thought they had that game. But we were looking at what they were doing, and it's like, this is not gonna win them the game. And we're getting where we want to get, like, slowly. Once that happens, then we're gonna win. So I don't know, from our point of view, it did not look that bad. At no point did we start thinking, oh, this is really bad. Like, what? No, it's like, like this just keeps getting better to the point where we just won. Like, it keeps getting better, and now this guy just pulled back, TP'd in. Like, this is gonna be GG. Like, if we actually get that kill, the game is over. And we got the kill, and the game was over. So, yeah, it's pretty much how it felt.
Right, when you were in the final, I think to me, game 1 sets the whole tone for the series, because I'm sure LGD came out of all these drafts thinking they'd won the draft. They were like, great, this is awesome. They're picking stuff that no one's really using. We're getting everything we want. Like, in theory, it's hard, even when you've seen the game, to figure out how is Monkey King and Spectre going to win this game. So what was the philosophy on your side of the equation? Like, what were you and your coach trying to figure out? Like, it's clear you guys had a different way of thinking about the game in the final, right?
With most of the drafts, I think most of the drafts of the main event, we were really happy with. I'm trying to think. Maybe game 3 against EG was a little bit harder drafting wise, but from our perspective, I mean, from my perspective, I'll speak for myself. Like, we should have won game 2. Like, drafting wise, also game 2 was a huge win, and in game also we did what we had to. Game 2, we should have won game 2, I think. Game 3 was much harder. I think they adapted very well, very quickly from game 2 to game 3. And as for the LGD series, I think for the most part, we were pretty happy with what we got. Like, what we had prepared, it was exactly what we expected. And no, we never felt like we were on the back foot. It's like actually quite the opposite. Most of the time, we felt like extremely confident that this is going our way. For almost the 8 maps, honestly. I'm trying to think. I mean, the last game 5 was a little bit different, the dynamic, but for most of them, it was we're pretty happy with what we're getting.
So then did your team have like a different mentality to most? Because tying into what you said before, one of the weird things about this year has been because of all the patches, there's a lot of teams, I think this is something actually Team Liquid might have even complained about. A lot of teams felt like, right, it's the old mentality of like, right, a patch changes, you figure out what's strong, start playing that, adapt to it. But since the patches are coming so fast, well, there isn't like the 3 months to adapt, It's like it hits, another patch hits and something different happens. So was there ever like a conscious decision of like, forget the meta, just play these specific things we want to do, or here's something that could work? Like, were you consciously trying to just do your own approach?
I don't think we ever there was a lot of this, of course. Like, I don't think we were stuck looking at like what the meta was. We're mostly looking at ourselves, and if we like what people do, then we pick it up. And if we don't, we don't. And if there's something we want to do that we believe in, we also do it. Like, it's pretty straightforward. We don't like, let's say you're gonna look at like whatever EG or whoever was dominant, like LGD or whoever. I don't remember who else was in like even Liquid and stuff. Like when we're getting to top 4, top 5 teams, if there's something that they do that we thought was really good, then we just consider picking it up. Then you get to use it or not. And if sometimes you look at a team and they're winning, but you're not a fan of what they're using to win.
Sure.
Then that's it. Like, it doesn't mean that there's this thing where if you win, then everything you did was right. And if you lose, then everything you did was wrong. Like, that's a myth. Like,
yes, that's
not a thing at all. Like, you need to look at things like you need to have a smarter approach to things. Else, I don't think you're getting really far with that approach. Like, you're probably not getting anywhere if you want me to speak my mind. We didn't like limit ourselves to anything when it came to meta or what other teams were doing, or even whatever crazy ideas we might have had. Like, we would have went for it. It doesn't matter, like win rate, whether these are picked or not, which order we want to pick them. Of course, we're trying to optimize it and we're trying to break them at the same time. But no limits.
When you were in this final and they won game 2 and they won game 3, and some of the memorable aspects were once they got certain heroes fully online, that's when their team just looked really, really strong. So Enchantress, people will remember, obviously was way out of control. The Phoenix was doing loads of damage in game 3. In these sorts of games, when they're at their best, did they always still look beatable? Like, did you still believe like we can still win these games? Because, you know, like I was alluding to before about the draft aspect. If you go by what the conventional thinking was, what the paradigm was for TI, they literally fit the bill of all the check marks that everyone else was saying of like, right, you've got to win the draft, then you've got to win lane, and if you win lane, and then like the mid-game team, that's just the game over. You've won the game already. Whereas your team, by the looks of it, were picking comfort heroes, getting all this late game shit, winning late game somehow, even if you way back. Like, it's like you were doing everything that everyone else would have said would be the wrong move, and then they were doing everything that was right, but you won in the end. So what were they like when they were actually rolling, though?
They were pretty scary. Not gonna lie. Like, after game 2, game 3, also they won in a way where like there was no doubt that like had we replayed these games, they probably would have win again. Maybe they would not have, but they won in a very dominant fashion. Game 2 and game 3. It's what it felt. It never felt like at any point in these games we had really threatened them, or you know, like they were close to losing. It felt like it was. I hate the term, but like pretty easy wins for them. Like, you know, like they just played their strategies, executed them very well, almost perfectly, and we try to go for whatever we believed in. It just didn't work. Like. Yeah, they just win game 2, win game 3. And then you're in a position where, like, I mean, you just lost 2 games in a row, and they were pretty dominant, and you can't afford to lose another one. It is a pretty scary position, but this is when we had to go for, like, whatever resources that we have, like mental resources or in-game, and you know, build confidence back up and go back in there. But not only the hope that you're going to win, but like the certitude that you're getting game 4 and you're getting game 5. And it's what ends up happening. But yeah, at that point, it's definitely like a huge turning point. Like it's the hardest moment in the series for sure. Like you're back against the wall. Like all the indicators, like they're pointing red, you know, like however you look at it, it doesn't look good. So it needs to come from something else.
When you get to game 4, and obviously your team is the one that's down, so you're the ones at elimination, right? This is a moment I've noticed that really is like a turning point for a lot of people's, like, you know, career as to whether they get to the big moment. Because the problem is when you face elimination and you have that in your mind, some people second guess themselves and think, right, should I just pick something that looks strong? Or, for example, should I just pick something that's my favorite hero and therefore at least I lose on something, you know, I've played a lot. Like when you come into this game, obviously it ended up being one of the big difference makers was you went for this axe pick, which again is something where it's like, that's not a meta decision that you do in there. That's not like the fact that logically at the time people had no real clue what this was going to do in the game. So what were you thinking and how did this game come back? Because obviously it ended up being the case that it was getting kills on that hero that even gave the team a chance to win, because otherwise the game's probably over, right? Yeah,
the game, like had I fucked up with that axe, the game would have been over for sure, because the game happened in a way where I was the one getting space, a lot of space, and they were shutting down Topson like heavily, and our tri-lane, like they went aggressive tri-lane, and our tri-lane was kind of shut down too. Like none of us could actually make like important plays or like try to get us where we wanted to get in the game, except for me. I had a lot of openings. And of course, if you failed to deliver at that very crucial moment in the game, considering how the other lanes are going and how like just the overall game is going, then we would have lost. I don't like the way the X pick happened is like, I don't know. It's just like, just game understanding. We hadn't played, like, to be actually transparent, I hadn't played X I think once, like in like the 5 months before. Like I did not. This was not like I hadn't played Axe at all. It's actually not one of my heroes at all.
Okay.
I'm not an Axe player. I mean, I am an Axe player. I'm an everything player. Like I play so much Dota that I can play any hero. It's not a problem. But it's not like if you ask me before TI, like what heroes, like if my captain asked me like what heroes do you want to play, I would not have listed Axe at all. But it's just like it was the Axe game. It's just what it was. Like I looked at their draft, I looked at the heroes that we had. I looked at what they banned also, and I'm like, this is it, man. This is Axe. Like this, there's nothing else. Like Axe is just absolute perfect here. It's good with what we have. It's good against what they have. It's good for how the game is gonna go. Like if I ever saw an Axe game in my life, like this is the one. And it ended up being. It's like in these moments, everything just came together. Like the stars, they just aligned at that TI for like many things, and this was one of another star aligning. You know, it's like you just happen to have the right thought at the right time, and it's what happened that game 4, and much more happened. But yeah, it ended up working. It was great, and I don't know if on another day I would have had the thought of it. It just happened.
Well, if you hadn't played it for all those months, was there any tension when you actually locked it in? You were like, right, this has to happen now.
No, at that point, I don't know why, but our team confidence and mine specifically, I mean, I can speak for myself. Not mine specifically, as in, I don't know how it was for the others, but I know for me, like my confidence was through the roof. Like I even remember telling people before I went in, like this game is ours. Like we got this game. Like, and I really meant it. Like I felt like there was no way we lost this game. Like we were gonna destroy them that game. That's how I felt. I had that feeling really strong. Obviously we didn't. It was a really close game and stuff, but I felt like we were invincible. Like there was no way we were gonna lose that game. And the Axe pick just like it just happened, and it just was part of it. It's like this is the Axe game, and since it is the Axe game, they will lose to that hero and the other heroes that we have. You know, like it. At no point did I didn't even think that, oh shit, I haven't played Axe in a while. I was like, let's just do it. You know, like let's just do it. Yeah, that's all it was.
When you actually were getting those kills and you saw like you're sort of the one win condition for a while until the Phantom Lancer comes online later. Since you are someone who had all those years off, and actually famously when you were a player, TI wasn't your big tournament that was going great. Was there a thrill to be kind of in that position?
Yeah, a little bit, but the thrill was more like I was hyping my teammates up in that game because obviously it's an elimination game, and I felt like, I mean, they were having a rough game, most of them. Like early game, I'm talking. Just the lane setup was really rough for actually almost all of my teammates. So, and I was feeling like I was somewhere else. Like I was feeling great. I was having a great game also. That's also a blessing that I got that much space when I felt that great before going into the game. It just clicked. So I was just telling them like that. I mean, we got this. You know, like this game. Like I probably said that it was going to be an easy game. Obviously, you don't mean these things, but
sure.
You just let your team know that you got this. You know, like this game is going to be mine. Like you can rely on me. This like for this part of the game. Like just don't worry about anything that's happening because I'm taking us wherever we need to get, and next stop someone else is going to take you there or whatever it was. But like it was a thrill. It was just a thrill being able to be there for them. That's mostly what it was, and that felt great. Yeah.
You know, like there's an infamous detail that actually a lot of casual fans don't know, which is that in TI3 in that final in the game 5, that whole like $1 million dream coil basically isn't real. Like if you go back and actually look, like some of the players he stops didn't have a TP scroll. Like it actually is like here's the thing: if it was a movie, that's what would have happened because it's fucking amazing. But it's actually not as sexy a story. Well, the sad thing is, no one came up with a name for it, but there was one of these in this game in game 4, which is if you remember at the end of the game, Anna does something ridiculous, like he figured out he had just enough money if he sold an item to get like a buyback something like that, right, in one of the fights towards the end, where I don't know what the name would be, but that should be the whatever the equivalent name is, because the game's over if he doesn't do that.
Yeah, and he also picked up the bounty, right? And if he doesn't pick it up, that's also game over. The thing that what's crazy about that play is that he had to pick up the bounty and he had to sell his items. He had to sell the right items, he had to do the math. Like that's not only Dota. That's a guy that he skipped school to play Dota, and he had to do the math of his life to just get it right. And we're talking like how many seconds, and he's getting ganked. This is not him just chilling in the jungle, farming ancients, being like, oh, I'm just gonna go to the secret shop, sell some items just in case, guys. This is him getting smoke ganked. So in 3 seconds, he has to decide whether he needs to run. What 3 seconds actually? Less than a second. Like he has to decide whether he needs to pick the bounty rune, try to run, try to call for TPs or whatever. I don't think we could connect at that point, but or sell his items. And the guy just like took the bounty, sold his items. It's the same thing of me calling Axe earlier. It's like we were not destined to lose that day. Like that day, we were gonna win. Like no matter what, you know, they got the correct gank on the correct hero that had no buyback. You know what I mean? They did everything right.
Yes.
Yet they lost. So I mean, I don't know what can I say. I actually don't know what happened. It just happened. We just could not lose.
Well, if you say that, then clearly the story of Game 5 is like that over a whole game, because this is the game where, again, if you're LGD, if you felt any nerves of like, oh, they've come back in an impossible game, you love in the first like 15 minutes of this game. It's like, how could this go better? We basically won TI. If we just don't fuck up now, everything's great. So I still don't know. How did you win that game? Should be impossible, right?
I mean, it's like when I look at this, and it's the same as Game 4 when you think about it, and it's the same as Game 3 winner bracket. I mean, they must have went insane. There's no other way. They must have went insane because they probably thought so many times that they had it. Like they had the game, or they had even the TI win. They thought a couple times, maybe more than a couple. I mean, this is it, right? It's like some 20-4, and they're like 15k behind, or whatever the figure was. Like, there's no way. Like they can't fight us. We have the better team fights. We have the whatever. But even in that game, we just, at no point did we feel like, it just didn't feel like we were going to lose. Like, we're just doing what we think we have to do when we think we have to do it. And it was really rough. I'm not going to lie. Like, it was very rough. Lanes were rough. And then we did a couple moves that ended up, it's not that it didn't work. Like, it was an absolute disaster. Like, we were making a smoke play or whatever, rotation, and we die with 4 heroes. Instead of winning the fight, which is like the aim of the play, right? We're trying to win that fight, and then we end up like all dying, and we're back to Fountain, and we're like, all right, I guess now we have to come up with another play, with them being even further ahead. So it's like, in theory, it's an even like a harder play, but it started working out because we just never lost hope. We just never gave up. And I also felt like Game 5, specifically mentally, they crumbled, because as soon as we started like getting back in the game, just a little bit, some really small victories, we felt like they started like making some very uncharacteristic mistakes that they were not doing like before, 4 games before, and even winner bracket finals. The turning point is the Roche fight. When they lose the Roche fight and they lose Roche, they felt like a different team. After that point, it actually felt like the game became pretty easy, actually. And I don't mean it in an offensive way, but I just felt like something happened to them, where like mentally they were not in anymore. Like they started playing weird, like some weird decisions that we actually didn't expect, but it felt that was the big turning point of the game. As soon as they understood that there was a chance they could lose to us, or that we might, maybe they overthought the comeback thing. Maybe it's like, oh, they're doing it again. We were not doing anything again at that point. We're just playing the game like we played the other games, and we're obviously trying our hardest to win. But yeah, then there was this huge turning point, and then everything just snowballed, and next thing I know, we're trolling them. But the same applies. Like when we were actually trolling, I don't think we realized that, at least I did not realize we were going to win. I'm just saying the throne because the throne is exposed. Yeah. So once the throne actually dies, this is when I had this like moment of like, I was stunned. I'm like, my brain was trying to process that we might have just won TI, it might have happened. And then I have Anna like just like grabbing me by the shoulders, telling me like it's real, because I think I had this look where like I did not understand it was real, and he also right away understood that I was kind of clueless. I was kind of confused. And it's pretty funny because he's much younger. He has less experience when it comes to these tournaments and stuff, but he felt the need to be there for me in that moment, and telling me like, like Seb, it's real. Like, yeah, we did it. So that was quite weird. But I mean, it was great, of course. But yeah, it didn't strike me right away.
Because the part about that I think's quite curious is the part that, as he's saying, it's not even like as the comeback's happening, you know that, oh, like this is definitely going to happen now and we're going to do this next. Because obviously that is the flaw of when you try to analyze a game. Like you said before about people thinking that if you win the game, you did the draft right, which obviously doesn't have to be true at all. And in fact, sometimes can be, that's why some games are miraculous games. Because like, how did they win with that draft, Well, likewise, when people look at your team winning, like I said before about them thinking that you consciously like figured out, no, we're going to go against the meta for this one because like they all think you've got like a fucking chalkboard with all equations on the background and you've solved the game or something. Well, in these scenarios, you can't even really think 2 minutes ahead after this next fight because this next fight's going to be a miracle fight to win anyway, right? So it's what is it that carries you through those moments instead then? Because obviously it's not a conscious knowledge of what I'm going to do, but something has to happen.
I think it's like an unlimited amount of like hope and trust, and it's like we believe that we can do it, and when the score is 0-0 and we play against like a bunch of randoms, we believe we can do it, and score is 20-0 and we're against like what people think is the best team in the world, we still believe we can do it. And like now it's a team fight with whatever, this is what we have to deal with. Well, we believe we can do it, and they're throning us. We believe we can do it. We're throning them. We believe we can do it. But obviously, that sounds more reasonable. But that's pretty much what it was. It's like we just never gave up. We never felt like we never doubted ourselves. Like pretty much, I think we had like an unlimited amount of confidence, like infinite confidence in ourselves and in each other's. The same way we approach like roster shuffles or whatever. It's like it's pretty much the same mentality, and it's the same. It was the same in the game. We just never doubted each other's or ourselves. Like we just believed we could do it, and we did it. So I guess we were right, or maybe we weren't, but it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you said before, when you talked about when Na'Vi lost that final to Alliance, like I agree. I thought that was like one of the, obviously the worst losses you could ever have if you were in your career. I mean, to be fair, they had won international before, but whatever. It's still like the way they lost. It has to feel like, oh, we were winning. I thought that we won that one, So like you say, that can break a team, or it can haunt you mentally. You keep thinking back on it, or you wish you were in that situation again. I think the LGD one might be worse, just because of the fact that, like, remember in that was the one where Alliance had easily beat them in the upper final, and it was only in the final it was an epic game. This is the one where LGD could be thinking we should have won the upper bracket, and then in the final, what the fuck, like every one of these games were winnable, or we thought we had them won, and so just a miracle, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it is, but that's also the beauty of TI in the sense that, to be like, had they lost to us once like this, then I think they can think this way, but when it happens again and again and again,
yes,
then there should not be
4 times. So yeah.
So then there should not be doubts. It's like in a lot of tournaments, I think you can say it, but like in TI, like the better team, then you can say the better team that day. Sure, that's true, but the better team on that day won. Like that makes no doubt, because I mean we've played 10 games against them overall, like all tournament, right? So that's a lot of games. Like, you don't get to play 10 games against any team in any tournament. Against LGD, we played 10 games with each other, like 10 maps, I mean. So that's way enough. Like, that's way enough for both teams to accept the results, no matter what it is. Like, of course, if you meet one team in the best of one, and that's elimination game, like Fnatic, they played, who was it, like Serenity, and best of one, you can always be like, that game could have been different. Maybe we were the better team, maybe we weren't. It doesn't matter. But like 10 games over 3 different days, it's settled. Like that's what it was. At least that's what I believe.
Right, with some of the old OG lineups, like we said, like sure, some of the players were underrated or whatever. Like in this particular LGD lineup, some of their players, I mean, it's only the fact they lost the final means that people weren't calling them like the MVP of the tournament. Like the obvious examples, like Fi was unreal. Somnus, a guy who obviously eliminated you from TI past years. Do you actually think, man for man, that OG was better than LGD?
I don't think man for man is a thing. So I never think this way. Okay. I don't believe in man for man.
It's just the team.
Yeah, it's a team. It's all it is. Man for man doesn't mean much. Some players look at it this way. It's also part of disagreements that we had in the OG roster, not the last one, but before we split. Like I never looked at man for man. Like I don't think a team wins because of this player or this player. To me, this is nonsense. A team wins because of the team, and they lose also because of the team. The same. This guy doesn't lose them the game. The same way this guy doesn't win them the game. At least that's not how I look at the game at all. But of course, I mean, man for man, they have great individuals. So do we. Plus, we were the better team, I guess, that day. And to me, that's pretty much all it is.
Yes. Right. What about this then? So I know that you stressed that whole angle before, which has obviously been one of your philosophies in your career of like keep a core together, like don't make roster moves, don't do drastic things. But the bizarre part is, right, that's a great philosophy. And I think actually it's borne out by your career with, especially as a coach where your team won more majors than anyone else. That's more consistency. But you did end up winning TI because someone made you make roster moves, made you make role swaps. It can work the other way as well. So when you look at this squad now, is the aim just to keep this squad for like 2 years? Is this really going to be the one that like you'll survive to the next TI, etc.? I know everyone wants to say that every time, but most of them aren't telling the truth necessarily.
No, I mean, that could be a scenario, but at the same time, I know people say that we ended up winning TI because of the roster changes that were like forced upon us. But
sure.
I'm just gonna put this out there. But what if people did their part, like the way they were supposed to do their part with the old roster? Maybe we would have won TI with the old roster, and maybe this is the same story. And maybe this year we had what it took to win TI, and we were going there, but we were forced to like start over, and we actually managed to build it back up. I don't know. Maybe the other team would have won TI had we believed in it, of course, with the conditions that we had to play in. Yeah, it probably would not have won TI. I can agree. But let's say, I mean, the conditions after the roster change were so much better than what they were before. But had they been that good before, maybe the roster that we had could have also won TI. It's like when I hear that, we won TI because of the roster change, it feels I don't entirely agree. Obviously, there is some truth to it. Like a lot of it is true in the sense that we would never have played with these players, and we would never have built that if it didn't happen. So yeah, in that sense, I agree. But yeah, I would nuance it still a little bit. But no, I do believe that whatever you show outside of the game in transitions in the game, I can't if I show you that I don't trust you with certain moves, like outside of the game, if I think about leaving the team, right? Yes. For example, and that I think about leaving the team. How is this gonna work in the game? How is this gonna work when you're like 20-4 against LGD and they're like 15K ahead, and this is like an $11 million game, and everybody's watching, the world is watching, and you're asking me to do something for you in the game, like to trust your call? Like, how is this gonna work when I don't trust you? Like that, it doesn't work. Like Dota is, there's not like the game and outside of the game. It's all connected. It's all like emotions. Like it's all connected, and you either trust or you don't. You either you're either positive and you believe, or you're not. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is something you wanted, or it's not something you wanted. Like you wanted to win TI with this team, or you did not. Like, these are things that I don't believe of. I don't believe in. It's also why, like, certain teams, like, I actually don't understand. Like, let's say one guy says that he goes back to it, like, I'm here for the money, like, I don't care about my teammates. I don't understand how it works, and if it does, I'd like to know more about it. I'd like to understand how they make it work, but I don't see how it works. I don't believe in it personally at all. I believe in the opposite. I'm not saying I'm right. It definitely got me and my team to, like, it got us to win certain tournaments and stuff. So to a certain extent it works, but I'm not shutting the door. But I do not believe in it like whatsoever. That's where I stand.
So as like a final topic, as we start to wrap up now, when you go forwards with this team, obviously the next big tournament in the reshuffled, like redesigned Dota Pro circuit is the Kuala Lumpur Major. And it's been announced already that your team won't attend. And part of the reason why is like having a break, etc. Is this something that is a lesson learned from the past? Because obviously, aside from teams who just literally broke up and the Chinese players who fake retire every year, aside from that, there is a problem that if you win, people want to just see you go to the next tournament and win as well. And this is also something that ends up killing rosters, right?
I mean, to be like fully honest, I think we would have liked to participate, or like it's more like it feels bad to not play there and not be there also for our fans, for for like the amount of support we've been getting through TI. There's been something very special that happened for us during that tournament. Like the way we connected with people, with our fans, it was very special. We felt it. And this is something that we like, it's more than we respect it. It's like we're grateful and we want to give back. And obviously us not attending feels like we're doing the opposite of giving back. But it's once again the opposite. Like in order for us to give back, we would not be ready. Like we would have been playing qualifiers like next week, and we're not ready like mentally to play these qualifiers at all. We would not be doing ourselves a favor. We'll not be doing our fans a favor. We need a little bit of time to get like just get back down to earth after that TI. Like get back to work with a proper mindset. Like let the emotions slowly go away. Of course, enjoy them, but let them go away, and just like reset. We need a little bit more time than like a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, maybe we were slow at it. I don't know, but this is too early. It just sucks that we're not going to be ready in time for the qualifiers. Therefore, we can't attend the major. Therefore, we can't give back. So we're a little bit sad when it comes to that part, but we thought about it a lot, and this is what we ended up deciding. So yeah.
When you said earlier, like if someone made a list of, players who should have won TI or like they were so good, it's like, oh, how did they never? Obviously, like you would have had crit on your list there because of how long his tenure is, etc. Right? I don't think anyone had you as a player on that list of winning the TI. Like it had to happen for Dota history, And obviously, you were so successful as a coach. I think if this particular TI result hadn't happened, most people's conclusion would be like, should have stayed as a coach. That's why coaches are coaches, and that's why players are players, and the two worlds are different. So what has it meant to you to win TI as a player?
I mean, to me specifically, it meant that I was right all along, in the sense that I was right to believe in myself. Yeah, it's an amazing feeling. It's like it's a feeling that it's the best feeling in the world, at least so far to me. Like it means right all along in the sense that chasing my dream was the right decision, and like believing in myself was the right decision, that I could do it. So in that sense, it feels absolutely amazing. And it's also this part of me that there is kind of something, to me, the lesson to take from it is that, okay, had we lost TI, then obviously, I mean, the community would have called me washed up, or like that was like the worst thing that happened to OG. I'm saying this, but maybe it would not have been the case, but like it could have been the case. It's really bad that I switch from coach to player and whatnot and whatnot. So what does that say like about things, like how did my choices become, like how can they be like good or bad, like with these tiny differences? Like now, like we're talking like black and white, like it's either like a complete sequence of bad choices or like genius choices, like one after the other. I don't believe in this. I think people look too much, like you said it earlier, like at the trophy, like who's going to be lifting it. And I don't look at it. I try to look at everything that's like around me, and little things that you add up. And this is what matters to me in the end, because as I said in the beginning, like we're saying to wrap it up, but it all makes, like it's all connected. Like if you're going to look only at the reward, like if that's what you're in for, it doesn't work. And the same is like, if you think that it's pretty sad if people think that the only 5 good players that were in the tournament were the 5 guys that lifted the trophy. That's bullshit. That's not true. Like, there's probably amazing players. Maybe all of them are amazing. I don't know. That end up not even making it through the groups. You kind of want to look a little bit further and deeper. Of course, it's true that the players that won or the players that made it really far in the tournament, they're really good players and they deserve it and everything. But there's much more to it, is what I'm trying to say. And that applies when you win, and it also applies when you lose. And most of the time, people don't apply it when people lose. And I think it's a little bit sad because they're just missing a lot. And they should apply this to themselves also, like their own lives, is what I think. You know, like whatever objectives they have or dreams, you know, like failing is not a bad thing. I don't look at it as something bad. But people tend to make it bad. They tend to make it worse than it is, which saddens me. But, you know, hopefully things get better and people, like, mentalities change. So, yeah, there's hope.
Right, at the end of this interview then, do you have, like, I mean, you gave a pretty good final message there. I was going to wrap it in a feel-good, motivational speech, but do you have any parting words you want to give? Like, is there anyone you want to thank or shout out?
I mean, the fans. And when I say fans, it always feels weird, actually. It's not even the fans. Like, people that watch Dota and connect with us when we play. Because I'm one of them. You know, I'm a fan also. So it's like, it just felt like there were, like, emotions and just much more than Dota that was shared throughout this event and throughout the season overall. And I just want to say, like, that I'm, like, infinitely grateful for this. And I feel very blessed that I'm in a position where, and we're in a position as a team where we're able to inspire and we were able to help people, like, feel these things. Because this is definitely something that, like, we're lucky that we have that opportunity, and now it became the way I look at it is like it's almost a duty for us to give back and to keep giving, because we're giving the chance to give pretty much. So I just want to thank these people for, like, their support and just, like, I could feel, like, a lot of positivity, like, and just straight up, like, honest, you know, sharing and passion. And that's something amazing that I will never forget, and I will, you know, I will be cherishing it, like, for a lifetime. So I just want to thank all of them, like, from the bottom of my heart, and also want to tell them that if whatever they're going through and whatever their dreams are and whatnot, like, just use that inspiration, like, for yourself. Yeah, so that this will have been for something. That's pretty much it. And obviously everybody that just made it possible, like TI and just generally the scene, like everybody that supports the scene in any way. Obviously huge shout out to my relatives and family and teammates that are relatives and family at this point, for just making this dream come true. Like, it was an amazing experience. So yeah, shout out to everybody pretty much that was part of it.
Merci beaucoup.
De rien. You're welcome.
Right. This video was kindly supported by Gardner Wilson, Dean Tanglis, Alex Adams, Eddie Wingfors, Andreas Snazor Westerland, God Awful Waste of Space, Kyla Harris, Travis Greb, James Harding, Daniel Yordanov, Vexy, Robert Baxter, and a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest to appear in my content? Do you want to ask me a question in my monthly AMA? Do you want teasers for upcoming content and guests? Want to take part in a discussion about esports with me? Put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrolluminati today. Link in the description box.